2. Hello, and welcome to Spotlight, the official podcast of Grapple. I'm Benno.
I'm JP.
And I'm Matty.
And it's almost a full set. No, Gareth, the wheelman, is otherwise engaged. He's done the smart thing. He's got his feet up on a beach somewhere, hasn't he? Somewhere, Matty, after driving you around. Probably. After having driven you around the Greater London area over the weekend, but we had to come. It's going to be a short show. This one, I think there's not much to talk about. Not a big weekend to catch up on. Saying that, barely saw you. I saw you at the live show. We all that's the thing I've gotten from this weekend. The amount of people I've seen on Twitter be like, "Oh, I'm sorry for the people I didn't see," or about people message me going, "Oh, sorry, I missed you over the weekend." I think we all needed to realize everybody likes wrestling was in town over the weekend. Like, there were 81,000 people in there who paid me in that stadium. There was just no chance, was there? There was no chance you got to cover everybody and see everyone you want. But we did still see a lot of people. Saw a lot of our listeners, a lot of our patrons that are all in it, which we're going to get into as well. Even Joe showed his head for a bit as well. Got to see Joe, and that was fun at the Rev Pro show and the afters as well. It was much a social occasion this weekend, wasn't it, JP? Is there nothing else?
It was like a trip down memory lane of meeting up with everyone for like a big social occasion, with just a massive stadium show at the end of it. But it was, as we're going to talk about, and we both written about it on the Discord as well. Like, it was outstanding, and it was brilliant to meet up with people. And if we didn't get a chance to meet you, I'm really, really sorry. But hey, look, they're doing it again next year, so fuck it. I think
It'll be fine.
I'm assuming we will be as well.
I'll say apologies to the one of our patrons, knows who he is, who did bump into Joe when I was chatting to Joe at the Copperbox. He walked up to Joe and said, "Are you Grapple Joe?" And he went, "No." And that was it. He Larry Davided him. But he was there. You didn't see a ghost if you saw Joe knocking around. But that was the thing. I saw so many of our listeners at the Copperbox. I feel like the crossover between like Rev Pro and our listeners is big. Like, but how many iPods did you sign, Matty? How many photos did you think we'll be charging 5 ago? 10 ago? Did the price go up?
There was no charge, Benno. It was just a happy weekend, wasn't it? It wasn't about making money. It was about making memories. That's what it was about. And as you say, especially the Saturday night, Benno, got to see everybody. It can converge on like them bars we went to and stuff. And it was just a great weekend. And with our live show, as you say, just amazing, an amazing time. It
was like Brit Res gone by, like JP said, back when it was good, and you're like, look, you'd be in a bar, you look in the one corner, like Joe's over there with like Cooper. JP came with the baby at one point, didn't you? To that, so I add that as Grapple Charlie. We met a few people over this weekend, including a couple of famous wrestling journalists, which I loved. End of the Copperbox show, just saw JP sprinting over to Meltzer and Alvarez to get that photo. They were very nice though, weren't they, JP? I got a picture with Alvarez.
I didn't think Alvarez was going to take it, in fairness for him. But no, actually, Dave looked terrified, which I wasn't surprised. But that, for me, is a cracking sitcom where Dave just gets dumped with a baby that he has to deal with. And I think that in and of itself could be very funny. But Brian, obviously being the big family man that he is, so he's like, baby, and then came over as well. And Charlie, he loves it as well, isn't he? I mean, I said it at the Grapple Charlie Appreciation Society. It was like... he's got his own little faction there, but it was tremendous stuff.
It's one of them. It's like you said that on the pre-show, but like anybody I did speak to, like genuinely, it's always a it's. I was speaking to a lot of people about this. It's like this podcast I listen to, and I always make the joke. I see I remember once telling my mum a story about how my mate had seen this film and he really hated it, and then I realized it was called Dave. And it's Dave Chen from the Slash Filmcast. Well, I've never met in my life. But when you listen to podcasts, you feel like you know these people, don't you? You feel like you know them. And even like a lot of our patrons, we feel like we know them because we talk to them all the time, or we have, especially with the Kings of the Mountain, we have them on video and stuff. And it is just like, it's different when you see people in real life. And like genuinely, like, not to get super soppy, but anybody who like you came over and had the kind word to say, or just talked about like, seeing it in real life, I think, because a lot of the podcast, JP, is like theoretical, isn't it? I spent so much time thinking of like the stupid show notes and the timestamps and where things are going to go in a show and what show's going to come up next and all of these stupid little things that feel like maybe they don't matter, and then you meet people and you speak to people and you realize like what the the podcast does have an effect on people, and that people, you know, who listen to it, you know, obviously do appreciate the content that we put out and stuff. And it's just to kind of hear that other side of it. Like I had a couple of people like, oh, you're probably like, you know, especially at the live show, you're probably, you know, sick of this or feel like they're wasting out. Never. Like anytime you see any of us, and I know JP would say this too, like it was every interaction I think I had, it was great, and it was just so rewarding to see all these people who, you know, who found the podcast useful. JP.
Oh, absolutely! Like it makes like it inspires you to do it, like as well, and it really, and you know, without going into detail of it, I've had a rough time recently, and this was like the most perfect pick me up. Like it really was, like being there with like people you love and people who have invested the time, effort, and money to come and see what we do, which at times can feel like nonsense for us, like three lads in our bedrooms talking about wrestling, like you know, but it was superb, and like and just special shout outs as well. I know we're going to talk about All In It, but for Davey and Braden, who are absolutely tremendous, and if you know at Poisonrana, they do brilliant work anyway. So if you don't go and subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to their Patreon. They do brilliant work, and they are a well-oiled machine when it comes to doing the quizzes and stuff. And I was listening back to the intros they gave us, which were just phenomenal. So it was absolutely brilliant, and it was packed up there as well, wasn't it? Like, I mean, we were looking across, and I was like, Christ, shit got real.
Hopefully everyone with a good view. So apologies if anyone didn't, because I know it was tight at the back as well. So it was a standing room at Trinity, wasn't it? But no, absolutely agree. Davey and Braden like deserve all the credit for kind of putting it together and doing the heavy lifting with the venue and all of that stuff. Really, like they're also responsible for why I'm so tired right now. Fuck me, I was out with those lads in Shoreditch on I think it was Thursday, and I tried my best to keep up, and I don't think I've recovered since. I don't think Davey's been very well since either. So I suppose it's a draw there, but like the center of the universe of anything fun going on is usually those two, and they're usually people gravitate towards on these big weekends when it's in America or Canada or whatever, and they were just brilliant over the weekend. It was just
WH said that before. He just sort of they are the center of like when of just like that kind of party atmosphere, and he weren't wrong, because they really are, and deservedly so. They are brilliant lads, and
we say, don't we, Jay? Sorry, we say that, like, you know, the joke that the professional podcasters us like, but they are professionals, Benno. They were so good at what they do. Honestly, I was trying to get involved with all the games, really. I had to realise that I couldn't. So I was on the stage. Honestly, they're so good. Honestly.
One of the games was it was something like they'd read off like tweets, and you had to guess who it was. One of which was mine, of course. But yeah, they were great. Like they made our show better because people will hear the audio. We are going to put the audio up on the. It'll be on the Patreon feed, but it'll be free for all. So like anybody who wants to get to it, you won't have to be a patron to listen to it, but you will have to go to the Patreon to get it. One of those ones. But that like you'll be able to hear it. But yeah, the big intro where you know we all had our entrance themes. You can probably guess what some of them were. A few fingers being thrown up for Mandy's. Matty's. Mandy's my boss. That's how tired I am, by the way, after this weekend. For Matty. But then again, that doesn't give it away, really, Matty, because it could go either way. That could be a finger one way or a finger the other way, you know, who it was. But we'll leave that for people to tease as a tease for giving that a listen. But I don't think it could have gone better, really. Like we did a bit of a 5-to-1, didn't we, on our 5-to-1 favorite physical shops. So I wanted to tell a couple of stories of some of the wrestlers I'd seen knocking around Wembley that weekend. And our 5-to-1 best live shows as well. Took some Q&A from the audience too. It was just it was a great hour, wasn't it, Matt? It was just dead cool to get to do it in person.
It was like, I think JP briefly mentioned there, like at first, but I couldn't look up. I was that nervous. And like I say, for the people all there, just seeing the sheer amount of faces and bodies there, it took a few minutes for me to be able to look up, to be honest. But yeah, it was absolutely unbelievable. Like, and I'm gagging to do it again, boys. Yeah.
There'll be others, I think. Whether it'll be August 25th next year, we'll see. But there'll be others. I think it'll be is guaranteed there, Jacob. Yeah, the gears are already turning. But again, it wasn't so much about the lives, it was about meeting, like say, so many customers and patrons. Too many to name. I will say I met David Pick, who used to do Smart Off Video UK. He was a hero of my teenage years. So he was at our live show. So it was good to see him. Good to see
He's
him.
a lovely bloke, is David. Yeah. Really, really nice. But like everyone, I have to say, like, I don't think, honestly to God, and he may think, behind closed doors, he'll be like the Ultimate Warrior, slagging them off. No, like, I swear to God, like,
everyone
people
was
were absolutely lovely and really, really nice. And they were just like, this was cracking. And all for reasonable price pints compared to the Wembley ones.
Too many of those reasonable price pints, though. That was the other problem. Like I was at the karaoke afterwards where Davey and Braden were really shining at that one. But I think what happened was like we had like it started as wrestling karaoke and we weren't charging entry or anything like that. So again, Davey and Braden were just doing it out of kind of the goodness of their heart, and like it started like that. And I think something went wrong with another karaoke party, which will not be named, in the Wembley area. So I think we started getting a few of their cast-offs coming in. Then we just started getting locals coming in. So it went from like Chris Elliott being on stage, like doing some banging renditions. I think he did Edge's theme. Randy Orton's theme was in there at some point as well, Matty. And then by the end of it, it was just a load of locals just doing karaoke. We ended up shutting the place down at like 2:30 or 3 in the morning, something like that. So like by that point, I was ready to die. I was done, mate. That's the reason I'm so knackered. I've never been so tired of me like that. And I reckon a lot of listeners will be the same. That we'll feel like after the weekend, doing Copperbox, doing Wembley, never mind all the social stuff and all of that. Did you get up to much else while you were there over the weekend, or was it all wrestling stuff?
Sorry, JP. I was letting you go first there, but we what did we do? I say we got caught. Especially the Sunday night after Wembley, Benno, we got caught in the masses, and I know, obviously, by seeing it, how obvious it is, but everyone did. It was a bit touch and go for a little bit scary, dare I say, for a split second, but we managed to navigate out of that and go for like a little something to eat just to let the crowds die down. And
I was glad to be away from that.
Yeah,
I had the stupid idea of trying to walk to Trinity, and halfway there, a bus came past and it said Harrow on the front. It was like a mirage, and there was no one on it. I jumped on. I got there in about 10 minutes. I was made up, but I know not everyone was so. I think it depended on which direction you came out of.
Yeah,
Wembley.
It was.
Did you get caught in Wembley Way or that?
I got caught in it, mate.
Wembley Park. Did you? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And then there was a bloke. One of the police. There was like security people that all put on a song. So he put on Sweet Caroline, which got booed, which I'm up for. I'm sick of that bloody song by now. But it was also like, mate, you need to know your audience here. This might work for the Challenge Cup, it'll work for football, but wrestling instead, like they put on, and then he had to the woman next to him had to find Judas on Spotify to then start playing through this megaphone for it. But it took its time getting out of there. It really getting out, it was probably like a good hour, just getting out of Wembley Way.
But can I just say though, one of the highlights of my weekend was on the Saturday night, Benno, when we went to was it called Grow? We went there, me, Gareth, and the lads went there for something to eat before Rev Pro, and then we went back after it with the downstairs bit. It was turned into like a nightclub, and it was
sort of couple of wrestlers having a very good time, maybe too good a time,
And it was just garage music, and I was loving it. Got the DJ I thought I'm going to take my chances with the DJ at a different city. Went over. Said, mate, have you got Oxide in the Trino, bound for the reload, that one? And he put it on. And the whole place went berserk and loved it. And I was just, I've done my work for the night. Went up later on to get another song. Went up, thought I'd take another chance. Went up and asked for Flowers by Sweet Female Attitude. We've already played that, lad. And I knew the night was over then. I had me shine, JP. Wasn't getting another song on. Classic, though. Classic.
While you were doing that, having your nice vegan meal, we were at I was at Hackney Wick. Hackney Wick's a great place. Like, there's so many cool. Like, I was in. It was a hipster heaven. I had a nice little coffee, Matty, that you'd probably judge me for having. Nice little it was just a black Americano, nothing fancy, but little hipster place that I found around the corner. Loads of just bars that were breweries and just loads
Yeah.
of like outdoor garden areas and stuff like that. Like we saw a lot of like people at Ogden's were there, of course, up that way. But yeah, saw Ben Moxham and a few of the other listeners there knocking around there. So it was such a good fucking night out. Like I'd go there just for it wasn't a shame to have to go to the Copperbox for the wrestling, but it like made me think, oh, next time, like especially if it's a nice day. Although it was a nice day till it wasn't, because we all got drowned on the way to the actual show as well. Trying to
My
get there.
God,
Carl ended up saving me and Stefan and getting us there in a cab, but fuck me, it turned. But as long as the weather's nice, next couple, I understood what I missed as well, JP. That not just the Copperbox show itself, which we'll talk about later. The area itself, I'm well game for going around there for the next big New Japan show.
The only thing I would say is, in terms of getting into the Copperbox, I won't go into it and we'll talk about Rev Pro necessarily, but I couldn't even bring the buggy in as well. You're right to have crates of like fucking big, like fucking I can't think of the name, barrels of beer and all the rest of it lying around in there. But apparently Charlie's buggy was a step too far as well. So that's hence us having to hold him and then rotate between me and Vicky, who held him.
You, Vicky, Meltzer, Alvarez, just around. Like,
yeah, exactly. Just passing him around, hawking my son off like the tart that I am.
That photo will absolutely be in the show. We're just loads of like social stuff from the Wembley show. We'll have to include maybe a selfie from you in the back of Garrett's car as you called him the greatest wheelman of all time, Matty.
I'm not just blowing smoke. I mean, honestly, actually seeing him jock around London doing like turns, doing like reverse, and I'm not a driver, so to me he was like the greatest. Like, you might as well be like a Lewis Hamilton take me around, because he was that good at like just maneuvering around the streets and stuff. Honestly, big shout out for him. And me and Gareth had a great time. Like the first time I proper spent time with him, like staying in a hotel with him and stuff like that. Top bloke, as we all know anyway. Just fucking love him.
Love it. Own personal show for all weekend. It would be, of course. Let's just see if there's anything else before we get into the show. Is there anything else social? Like I say, for me, like we stayed, I talked about it on the pre-show, we stayed near Wembley for like the first couple of days and then moved central for the actual weekend of the shows. And like, that was just fun, just knocking around. Like, I said, me and Steph felt like the first settlers getting in on Wednesday and just getting a couple of photos of like outside Wembley Stadium with all the AEW kind of graphics going up. It was on a rotation. There was like they were hard selling the New England kit, so you'd have to wait a while for it to appear on the screen outside Wembley Stadium. But like, we were knocking around there. It was just so much fun, just being like, Wembley itself, bit of a shithole. Like the Wembley Park area is like more of a man-made shithole. But like, just while Steph was doing media stuff, I was just knocking around there. It was just so funny seeing like it becoming normal. Like you'd be walking down the street, Satnam Singh would walk past with his wife, or like Sting and his gigantic son. I saw them. I think I mentioned it on the live show, having it's like a place called Bread or something like that down the road from Wembley Park. Just sat having a nice civilized lunch. It was just like you could feel the invasion coming. Like even saw Jeff Jarrett arrive in the area with a gigantic guitar-shaped suitcase, which might be given a spoiler that he was going to be involved in the weekend. Starts to see like the wrestlers and their little things. You can see like Powerhouse Hobbs was very good with the fans. I see him more than anybody. Any of these big AEW weekends, you always see him knocking around. He seems to interact with the fans, but like he's distracting the fans outside who were like camped outside the rest of the hotel, along like Britt Baker and a few of the others to sneak off. It was becoming too real. That's kind of why we got out of dodge of Wembley Park. Like I said on the live show, even saw Kip Sabian trying to talk Penelope Ford even to go into the local Wenzel's, which she turned down, but they did end up with a decent Tesco meal deal, which I think he tweeted about as well. It's just like, see, you'd have been a pig in shit, Matty. Could have had the photos you could have got that day. You probably got one with Sting's massive son. He might be a gigantic star one day. He looks the type, to be fair. Big lad, honestly. Looks like Sting back on the days when he used to team with Ultimate Warrior. That's kind of the look out of him. Yeah, big lad. Yeah. It was just so much fun to be there and just like fucking hell, this is real. CM Punk getting lost on the tube was another fun one, wasn't it? Unfortunately, none of us were lucky enough to give him guidance. I'd love that. Punk on the Met line, imagine.
Yeah. You believe he ended up in?
Yeah. So he ended up like, I mean, this is the thing I'm trying to work out. So he ended up on the Metro. That's a bugger. If he's coming in from Heathrow as well, he must have and he would have been dealing with carnivals on. He wouldn't have had a clue what was going on. Like, also, like thinking that they're here for the rest. What the fuck is happening here for this weekend? And he would have been doing the whole thing sober as well.
He looked happy on the pictures, though, didn't he? The pictures I've seen, he looked like genuinely like happy.
He's dying inside, 100%. CM Punk of all people getting stuck with a load of fans on the tube. I'm sure he hated it. But that was honestly my favorite bit as well was when I saw Jeff Jarrett and he was getting out of the black cab. Genuinely, I just saw like this white hair in the back of a black cab and just assumed it was some little old lady. And then out stepped Jeff Jarrett. I felt guilty at that point, but yeah, it was weird. It was weird. What did you spend much time around like the Wembley Park area? Like, what did you think of like the setup and stuff? Because we got out as that was happening, as the wrestlers were coming in, we got out of Dodgers. They were starting to set up like all of like the merch stuff and all of that, which was credit to them. Better than I expected it to be. Couple of gaps there, which I'm sure people are we'll talk about as well. But yeah, they just
those hooky scarves that were being sold, where it just had had Legends of Wrestling on it, and just Wembley
like that,
and a date, and I just went, you haven't even bothered to look which company's done it as well. I would have been disappointed if they hadn't put WWF SummerSlam 92 on there. It had that kind of vibe to it as well. But it was, it felt like, I mean, as someone who's been to Wembley for like football and stuff, it had that kind of feel to it. It was like, wow, just without the inevitable fights that would ensue if you'd had like football on the outside. And it wasn't people doing coke on a plinth and stuff like that. Maybe it was, and I just missed all of that stuff. But it didn't have like that kind of. It was very happy. I would say.
Yeah. The first time I've been
World
down
of wrestling. That's it.
To Wembley, so I was.
Did you do the Wembley Way walk, Matt? Did you go all the way down here?
Of course, but I had to we didn't get obviously come up from the tube station. That's the other end, isn't it? We come like about maybe a third of the way into it, and then we just walked right through. Bumped into Joe again on the way up in Wembley Way. I bumped into Joe, had a chat with him again, and then we just cracked on, took a couple of pictures. But just seeing all the wrestlers, the AEW wrestlers, as you're walking up on the big, LED screen on Wembley itself, was like, this is real now. This is like proper real, and just making your way around. The queue was gigantic to get in, but it went down dead quick. I just thought it was great. What an experience of going to Wembley finally. So yeah, loved it.
That's when it sunk in, I think. Because we hung around in Trinity as like David Bray did their stuff, and we did some setup for the night time and that, and then we kind of just got into the thick of it. Just managed to get a cab up there, and then just stepped out, and it was just sea of humanity, and that kind of we kind of had that realization just getting there on the Wednesday and just looking at Wembley before everyone arrived and being like, oh yeah, remember this is Wembley. This is bigger than I think anybody could possibly picture. It's like seeing it in real life and just seeing, even just imagining before it happened, to see wrestling fans and then getting there and seeing it. That was the biggest takeaway for me. It was like, even if it was WWE as well, JP, you go, okay, fair enough. But the fact that it was I was walking up to the show, just looking around, going, there's 80,000 people here, and they're all here not for a WWE show. This is just the strangest, most surreal experience. That I'm glad I lived it.
They were here for a main event between Ring of Honor tag champions in front of the biggest paid crowd the biggest paid attendance in wrestling history, which is nuts. That kind of stuff is going on. Like you say, there's people there who we've seen wrestle indie shows in front of 100 people and stuff in the UK, and it was just
Prince
bizarre.
Nana was on my ROH bus, mate. Never mind that. I remember him. James, he put on Twitter. I remember him being very hungover at the back of my ROH bus from there to Wembley. He was very polite, by the way. He was very nice.
Nana's dance as he's going down it, for that reason alone, that bloke needs to be on that, because I started dancing like he did when that happened. I'd had a few drinks at that point,
but yeah, like Simon says, it felt huge finally getting in, didn't it? Like that. Yeah. Was it a tear rolling down your cheek as you walked in, Matty? I can absolutely imagine it.
No, Benno, it was, and I said to JP, which I mentioned it a few times when we reviewed the show, just the experience, and even if just being AEW, Benno, and I know everyone, I'm a WWE guy and stuff, but as you say, just for professional wrestling at Wembley, people going to see it, I was welling up, Benno. I was holding it in. I genuinely was holding it in, because Gareth, even as soon as we woke up on the Sunday morning, first words Gareth was saying to me was, just think of every wrestling show that there's ever been, that we've watched on telly in our whole lifetime, and we're going to the biggest paid attendance ever. And it sunk in. Honestly, it was remarkable. It was so remarkable.
When we get the turnstile number, that's going to be fascinating. See if that went over 90,000, because that's what they were. Is that what Tony Khan said in the press conference as well?
I think that's what if you count the ticket seller, ushers, all of that, the WWE bullshit, but as well the comps, the media stuff.
90,000, weren't it?
The bastards! You told me when I
Yeah.
stood up during the Sting match, which is where I got this photo that's on behind me on here. But I think I think for me, it really sank in when I saw the production and saw the production actually look quite good, and I was like, like that was like it felt like a weight off my mind, because my fear was, is this going to look low rent compared to WWE? It was smaller, but I don't think that's worse. I think that's something that, like, that little entranceway, obviously very reminiscent of boxing. If you've seen a big Anthony Joshua fight, a big Tyson Fury fight as well, or even going back to George Groves and Carl Froch, like back in the day, it had that kind of vibe to it. But seeing the fireworks looking like proper fireworks and things like that, they were like things that put a massive smile on my face. Of like, actually, I'm really enjoying this. That like this feels as close. I'll never sit on the floor at a Mania. That's never likely to happen in my life. So the idea of being on that, it felt like, well, this is as big as it's ever going to get. And then I was there with my mate Alan, who isn't a wrestling fan. He's heard me and Joe talk about it at him for years. But for him to go there and go, actually, this looks properly spectacular, and then realizing we're in the middle of, like, we're near the halfway line at Wembley. Like, this is nuts. And it just sits there and you go, I'm part of a massive spectacle and event. And that's what, it's a shame because I haven't seen that much of the TV. I've seen bits of it. I've kind of flicked to bits I wanted to see again, like entrances and stuff like that. Yeah. But it seemed to come across that way as well. So my hope is that for the people watching home, they actually went, well, hang on a minute, this is special. This is much more special than,
I think they nailed the scale of it.
An arena. They did nail the scale of it.
100%.
Obviously, it's AEW, so there were like some production snafus and missed shots that you wouldn't have even got on the Rev Pro Copperbox show the night before. But that's just AEW's production team, unfortunately. But when you talk, like I'd be fuming if, like, I think because we were all sat in different parts of the stadium, which is going to be interesting. Like JP was on the floor, Matty, you were a little bit up, weren't you? You were like the front row of like the
front row of the actual stands, the first bit, yeah.
The first bit. And I was in the gods. I moved around a couple of times because I don't like sitting around people. That's when I most channel my inner Joe. But like, like we've all got like different perspectives on it. But like when I've watched the whole pay-per-view back, and like, that's the one thing I would say, they nailed like the scale and scope of the place. Like, it looked amazing in the daytime because you could see everything to a point where it was almost to a fog, because like it was part of me like, fucking hell, there was actually a lot of empty seats. Like, I would say in especially in the upper decks. I don't know whether, what's the actual number they could really fill in there
I think it's close to 100,000.
It must be based on the amount of red seats I could see from where because that's the thing, when you talk football, you've got an entire football pitch in the middle, haven't you? But once it's a wrestling or a boxing show and you add all those, you can add all those extra seats. Like, that's what's actually scary. There was more, they could do. But I had, like I say, I'm a cheapskate, so I was quite happy in like my cheapskate seat up top, because you could take in like the scale of it, and you could kind of like, I had pretty much a full walk around the top and sat in a couple of different seats, just taking in like in there's a couple of maybe one or two bad views in there where, like, if you were corner onto the big posts that they had for like the stand that covers the ring, that wouldn't be great. But really, 99 out of each 100 views, and probably like a bigger number than that in there, was like a flawless view. Like, you could be sat at the back and you would have a good view of the ring, and you would be able to like take it in. Like, there were probably some people on the floor as well. When as lucky as JP, they probably had that swinging cam. I think I saw a couple of reports. You'd be fuming if you spent 200 quid and you were stuck behind that. But I think we were all very lucky with our seats.
One thing I would say about my seats, I still found myself watching the TV a lot of the times because I couldn't.
I did a fair amount. As it got darker, I did. Yeah.
And it was, it's a thing where you think, could they raise the ring up by like a foot, just
maybe
in that immediate area? Now it's easy to say it, but how well it's going to like work logistically?
Were you standing, mate? Was it like a your horse? Mate, standing at the back with the bouncers?
I tried to. I did during the Sting match, which again is where I got this photo from, and then we got asked to move, and I thought, well, you don't buy a ticket.
Oh, you took that? I didn't realise you took that. Your background, is that you?
Oh yeah, that was me. Yeah,
we should all find one of our own seats and use it as our. I'm going to do that. I'm going to find mine.
Just to give you an update in terms of the record attendances here for football, the record attendance is 89,000. Not for an England game. It's Cardiff versus Portsmouth, the bloody playoff final in 2008. 98,000 for an Adele concert, but then that's because you can get 25,000 on the floor, which is probably a thing to say about how many people could you get onto the floor. You could, like, it seemed to be an easy kind of, certainly 5 to 7,000 on the floor as well. 94,000 for Tyson Fury versus Dylan White last year. For the NFL, they've done 86,000, and then it says 81,000 for wrestling. So, like, this is one of the biggest attendances that they, the stadium itself will have done. It says, and that's a paid number, 81,035. Just to make that absolutely clear, when they get the turnstile number in, and I'm sure Brandon Thurston will be doing the Lord's work, like hassling Tony for that. Like that scale and spectacle.
I couldn't take it in. I was up there, like, not really counting people, but just looking around, kind of just make my brain realize that there were near 90,000 people there. Like, it's hard to kind of understand that, even at the top. Like, looking, I'm sure it was the same for you, Matty, looking down from below. Is that when the tears started flowing? I'm dying to know. When did it hit you, mate?
Well, when we break, I'm sure we're breaking down some of the matches. You'll know when the tears come off there properly with the entrances. But as you say, I was holding it in bed. As you say, I get like that, don't I? I get overawed when I go into places that's genuinely happy. And like JP said before, they nailed it, and I'll go on more when we actually talk about the show. I can't fault them, Benno. It was like being at a WrestleMania, and I've never been to one. It makes me want to go now so much to a WrestleMania, seeing how these knocked it out the park. AEW, honestly, I can't fault them one single bit. Amazing.
That's it. And the only thing I'd say is I thought it was odd, like, because I don't know when you got into the building, but like I was walking outside, like on my way, and I could hear cheering, and it was like, hang on, it's not 5 o'clock yet. What the fuck's going on? It was weird. They did angles, wasn't it? Like I watched I've watched the 0 Hour back since. Now
Same here.
Seen it with the great pre-show. They were sat on the match of the day table.
Yeah.
Paul
Best use of Kip Sabian.
Yeah.
By the way.
Tesco Meal Deal's own Kip Sabian had at least the Go-Go got something to do. I was glad of that. With Renee Paquette and RJ City was really good, like doing like the interviews and stuff. But yeah, they did the angle with, like, we'll talk broad strokes about the 0 Hour, but like they did the angle with Hobbs and Miro, didn't he? That was what I must have heard outside.
I didn't see that.
Saw any of that? Did you not see it? Yeah, that was it was weird because it was like an unofficial kind of part of the pre-show, and it was to set up a match at All Out. It was all right. It was fine. It was just a standard pull apart. That's when, if you saw any of the photos of like the Brit Res guys in the ring, that's what that was. From Michael Oku and a few others.
Leon Slater was there. Man like Doris as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. Simon Miller was another one of the other ones in there as well. But that's what that was for. So it was weird they did that, because it was like, hang on, not everyone's here yet. It was just a strange kind of experience. But Miro's used to that, isn't it? From WrestleMania's gone by, being out there when there's not a full selection of fans out for a WrestleMania. He's only from Bulgaria. He's only a European. Couldn't have made room to do something with him on the show. But yeah, I missed that. But I was in the building for the big one up next. Did you make it in the building for Jeff, JP?
No, I'm absolutely gutted.
Devastated for you,
mate. I was gutted because I could hear something, but the block we were in, we had to do like this long snake to get in, and like block through the turnstile H, and apparently it was like, I don't know, shaped in the way of a H as well, because you were just going up and down at weird angles. Like, do you lads know we just have a queue? All right, so a straightforward queue to each of the turnstiles. It's not that fucking complicated, but and it was and eventually we got in, and then we went in, got a drink, and then as we came through, it was like, oh yeah, Jeff Jarrett's already been on.
He
was so great.
Amazing.
He proper like calling people wankers, wasn't he, Matty? It was very
Triple A.
I don't know. Yeah, pretty much Triple A he was going for. And like, obviously, it was nice to see. He didn't pay the money for Madonna.
He didn't.
Paid the money for some other things, but I was lovely to see Grado get such a pop though. Like, for anyone who doubted Grado's, obviously, level of star, he's not exactly, as much as we joke about him being a household name over here, he's not exactly Hogan, but like, the pop he got was great, and deserved as well for somebody who's like obviously quite integral in like the old Brit Res boom on the ICW side and stuff. Good to see Anthony Ogogo get a bit of a run out. You would have thought they're giving him something slightly better for this. Kip Sabian got left backstage, unfortunately for him. But yeah, and yeah, we got Big Show and Satnam Singh going at it, and that was pretty much it. Really, it was very much a house show angle, wasn't it, Matty? But it was a good laugh.
Yeah.
It was a payoff to both
Grado.
the angle they did on the radio and Jeff Jarrett turning up outside the Wrestler Hotel with a guitar's cheap box.
Yeah,
I knew it wasn't just going to be his undies in there. I knew he'd have a prop with him. Always come prepared, Matt. Always bring your gear.
Oh, proper worker, of course. And as you say, good payoff with Grado nailing the guitar shot on Jeff at the end and he got some great heat, Jeff. Like he really did. He drummed everyone up. And that payoff with the guitar shot, the crowd loved that. They definitely loved it. Just gutted, JP.
Yeah.
He didn't see it. Really gutted there, mate.
I'm absolutely gutted. I'm glad he made it on there, but there was no way in hell he wasn't. Like, he really would have been. Like,
yeah.
And it was... But at the same time, you had such queues of people coming in. I'm glad they were doing something. And they can get away with this stuff. So, I mean, it didn't look... I mean, the problem is that during the Hobbs Miro stuff, it looks like an empty stadium, which, well, let's face it, it kind of was. Yeah. And even then, there's probably about 10 to 15,000 people in there, which is mad in and of itself. It just gets dwarfed in a 90,000 all-seater stadium. But yeah, I was gutted I missed that at that point. We'd gone to the craft beer bit. That's what we've done. So yeah, we'd gone there instead. Yeah.
Did you partake much from the stands while you were in there? I was starving because I hadn't eaten before our live show, and that was the other thing about our live show. I was extremely hungover from the night before, so I'm glad it went off without a hitch in the end because I was a little bit worried at one point in the morning. But I had the chicken was good. I like that. You couldn't shoot everything about the food in Wembley though. It's all pre-prepared, so you can't say, oh, I don't want cheese on that, or
is it all done? Yeah.
All the chicken was half boneless, half bone, so I don't think you'd like that, Matty, but it was nice. It was spicy. Got a little chicken basket thing. I had 4 hours later, I had a little hot dog as well. It was good. I liked it. It was expensive. That's what you get in there. I didn't have a beer. That was the thing. I could afford it because I didn't touch any beer that day because I was so hungover. A couple of, Coke Zeros and that. It was all right. You didn't spend a penny in there then?
No, I didn't. I genuinely didn't because...
Obviously, Gary spent.
No, to be fair, not us four. We didn't have a beer. I think Crewy got a couple of round of waters in for the lads, but no, nothing. Gareth got a big tub of popcorn as well, which was wild. Just Gareth with a big bowl of popcorn. He had it for about 3 hours as well, and offering us all. And I didn't have none, but yeah, it was.
I'm just laughing at round the waters.
Yeah, no, genuinely. I don't think I left my seat once, even to go for the piss as well. I didn't to go to the toilet even. I didn't leave it once during the whole show. So, yeah, that was that really. The food, someone had a basket though, Ben, with chips and chicken strips or something, and that did look nice.
That's what I was mentioning, yeah. It
looked lovely, really yeah. Was it that, yeah?
Yeah, I had that before. I fucked off from the annoying bloke in front of me with the vuvuzela. I ended up in a row where it was just me, but I was at the end, so other people were using that row to escape from their one. But I don't mind. It's like being on a plane. I don't mind getting out the way for other people. I just don't want to get other people out my way. So yeah, I'm quite happy there. It was great. Great way to enjoy a show. But yeah, plenty to eat and drink there. But yeah, I mean, we should get into I suppose the more meaty stuff from the pre-show. Strangely ordered. I was surprised when because that's the thing. That's why I mentioned it. I was up in the stands getting that chicken when Adam Cole and MJF's music hit. I was like, fuck, better get that. I think the Aussies had just made their entrance as well. I was like, fuck, better get down there. It did feel like there was a bit of a stampede to get down there, which shows you that obviously, this program has and as we'd see at the end of the night, definitely translated well for some, but maybe placements I think AEW might regret, because if they'd had this at the end of the pre-show instead of the Jungle Boy match, something else might not have happened that we're probably going to get into in a minute. But yeah, lads went out there at a tag match, and it was kind of the point where you kind of got to first hear how loud Wembley could be, and yeah, there's not really much to say about it, though, is there? MJF and Adam Cole won. LOL, yeah. That was it. It wasn't the big angle we all expected. Wasn't like a big 10. Didn't lose to add some stakes to the main event. They just became the ROH Tag Team Champions. Like, what else can you really say?
To be fair, on the drive to our live show, we were all discussing the plausible what's going to happen with the whole story of this night with Adam Cole and MJF. And I had a light bulb moment in the car, and I thought they're going to win the tag belts. and they're gonna not turn on each other, and they're gonna go home happy. Like, they're gonna have a happy ending at this big stadium show. And that's pretty much what happened. Like, it just, honestly, it dawned to me, Benno, because everyone been waiting for this turn and waiting for something to happen. But I just honestly had that brainstorm, and that's what happened. And to be fair, which we'll go into later on, I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was like a good, like, tease throughout the whole night still, and then you didn't get it, and I was quite happy with that. But as a match, yeah, it was just a tag team match, and yeah, we got them getting the belts.
It was the first sign of what this crowd was gonna latch onto, like, throughout the night, because it was, the kangaroo kick was over, the double clothesline stuff was over. I mean, Aussie Open were just there to be bodies, weren't they? To kind of to take the fall. And I know I'm not going to cry any tears for them. I'm sure they're not gutted about being out there in front of, maybe not quite 80,000 people at that point in the afternoon, JP, but just being out there at Wembley in general, considering where they came from. Like, we've both seen them wrestle in front of, 50 people or less, seen them at, Fight Club Pro shows as well. Seeing them pretty much their journey from being from starting off the tag team. So it was nice they got their moments. So there is that part of my brain, but I think I'm less charitable than that. I still don't really understand why it happened. Like, maybe I don't want to get too much into All Out, because, this podcast will end up getting dated. I presume it's going to, lead into something there. But babyfaces won the tag belts, JP. No added stakes added to the main event. No real, other than Adam Cole walking off, there wasn't really much added there.
There wasn't, and we were all expecting a turn and other things like that. I mean, a couple of notes that I had down from this one was there was a load of people who were massive United Empire fans, because when they came out, they're all doing that hand signal thing there together. I don't know. I think it's that, isn't it? For those on video watching on that, they were all doing that, but it felt to me like it was fun. MJF, to say he is over is just an absolute understatement. You may well have,
he's amazing
already. He's just incredible, especially just that point when, even before, like the kangaroo kick, obviously you mentioned the double clothesline being massively over, just when he shook the ropes like Warrior, place went fucking batshit.
That's just going to get over in a stadium. Smart.
But you also realize how starved people were and how desperate they were to just love this, and so they were going to do it. So it was, again, a lot of fun for what it was, like, for a match that's less than 7 minutes long. And is it the best use of Aussie Open? No. But like you say, if you can, I mean, for those people who saw Mark Davis versus Carl Fletcher at Attack, which then led to them becoming a tag team, and we saw them wrestling up and down everywhere when they weren't even close to being the biggest tag team in this country, for like a while. It's such a journey, and you look at where they are as performers as well. And I think in terms of where this goes, storyline wise, it would make sense for the Kingdom doing the belts off them, but that feels like the kind of thing you do on TV. If you just want to move it onto a Ring of Honor tag team, but that also plays into the storyline as well. But I did think to myself after, I was like, okay, it was fun. People wanted to, the Better Than You baby stuff, and they wanted to go into all of that. But for me, it was just like, oh, okay. I'm not quite sure really what the point of this ultimately is, other than it gives people a chance to see that tag team. But as with so much on the show, and this is the thing, is I'm very much in the minority of how I felt there as well, because people fucking loved it.
Yeah, they did. And it was nice for that. Again, when we get to the main event, did it detract from the main event? Did it add to the main event?
That's what I'm waiting for, Benno. We'll have a good discussion after the match coming up.
I'm not necessarily sure it added, but it was a nice thing everyone got on the just a bit perplexing, as to why you would do it. But maybe plans were different when they first laid it out. As Liam says here in the chat, strange for them to lose to FTR and then just randomly win this second set of belts. But again, that might make more sense as we go. It was at that point Mercedes Mone was shown on the screen. That was a big shock to see that. I believe she was in the royal box, was she? That's where she was. None of us were quite that privileged to sit there. Steph was in the media box, but I think that was apparently had really good food and drink in there as well. So Wembley, thumbs up from everybody on the amenities they had. But maybe Mercedes Mone tucked into it some of those chicken tenders and chips as she was up there. And yeah, they showed it a few times through the night, didn't they? But didn't obviously didn't get involved in it and anything. I thought she might get involved in the women's 4-way, but didn't. A couple of people said to me who'd seen her in person that she did still have a leg in a big cast, or one of those modern kind of
moon boot things.
Yeah, the moon boot things. Yeah. So I think maybe that was probably not going to happen, but there you go. I kind of liked it because she posted pictures early in the day, hadn't she, of being like knocking around London, and I remember I was going, fuck, is she trolling? Like, is she really here? There's no way that's going to be the big reveal, but it was.
And do you know what? Like you, I kind of like the fact she didn't get involved in its own weird way, because it did feel like I was like, oh, fucking hell, she's here, which obviously is she's coming in. And it, like, the reaction that she got, like, there was that, that's the kind of thing she would have been thinking, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. If you're wanting to make an impression to someone to make them come in, this is possibly the best place then to put them. But like you say, I don't think she's anywhere close to being cleared. But it's good, even if she's just there in the back burner of like thinking she may not be, we could be like talking full gear by the time she's kind of ready to come out. But I think it's a sensible pickup for that women's division.
Gets everyone talking, doesn't it? Build the intrigue to when she is clear to wrestle. So yeah,
I felt vindicated as well. Some of the news reports said she was supposed to come out on that Boston Blood and Guts Dynamite. So I was like, I knew it. I just didn't, factor in the fact that she was walking around with a moon boot, so it probably wasn't really going to happen at that point. But it did. It felt it added to, like, it was like, I think Steph made this point. It was like, watching Wimbledon and there's like, a celebrity in the crowd. It was like that, wasn't it? It was like, oh, okay, this is like, of course she's here.
To Cliff Richard, mate.
She got up and gave us a tune, maybe. She was loving the Acclaimed stuff.
I was going to say she loved that Acclaimed music, didn't she?
Yeah,
she should have been. I know what she went. Swerve's house, mate. She should have been all over that.
That's the song. That is the
song. Should have been
song.
dancing to fuck like Nana would do as well.
I hope the security were more on it than they were around the Wrestler Hotel, because the wrestlers weren't getting much help. There were wrestlers coming and going in the Wrestler Hotel, whereas she seemed pretty unbothered in the up there in the Royal Box. So yeah, maybe it was better at Wembley. But more on that as we go, as we get into the and I think I know where this conversation is going to end up going. The main event of the pre-show before we get into dissecting the main card. There's Jack Perry and Hook, which was the last minute addition to the show, was here. Again, I said to Matty then, JP, strange placement to not do Cole and MJF last, and I bet you Tony Khan regrets not putting Cole and MJF last. There's Jack Perry from this match got a bit of a rush of blood to his head and would go backstage and keep it going. Before we get to that, which is probably a good segue into the main card, what did you make of this, Jack Perry and Hook, JP? I thought it was a good laugh to watch live. It was kind of like, I like the fact that it was, wasn't the last time of the night we could get a car involved. I kind of liked all of that stuff, doing the spots there. It was like unique from like the vantage point of the in the gods to kind of look down and be able to kind of make that out. And I thought they had a good wild brawl, really. But this was, I think we'd said on our live show when somebody asked, this would be our 3.25 star guess as far as the night goes. I'd say it was a bit better than that, but it was quite heated and good little spot for both of them to get on Wembley.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was fine. I mean, I still think there are legit like question marks about, say, Hook and what he can work to at this level, at this stage of his career. But I think it's a bit churlish to give him necessarily a hard time over it, because it's not like he shit the bed or anything else. It was like, we didn't, from where I was sat, you could see the limo stuff. I had to watch it all on the TV, and it was like kind of really what it should have been. In terms, I did think the Rolling Thunder he did was incredibly impressive.
I love that on the car. Yeah,
very good, very good.
It's a great spot, and like it was. I think after that is where he gets the rush of blood to the head, isn't it? When he does that and starts talking about like the glass before going into Justin Timberlake's Cry Me a River.
I finally saw that today, because that was the thing. There live, we didn't know that he.
We didn't know at all. Yeah.
I think that news story came out as well. Apparently, it was planned. He'd already been telling friends he was going to do it for a couple of days before Wembley. I don't even think it was that good a line, mate. I don't think you need to, like, there's plenty to go on all sides when we get into the major story. But he did do that, didn't he?
He did. And I mean, I would just say we don't need an FTW belt. That would be a thing that, like, there's no real purpose for that necessarily, and this is just going to be like Hook's belt, and even then I think it served its purpose for what it actually can end up being. But As a match, I would actually say 3.25. I think it was good. It just, as with a lot of stuff, it's elevated by the crowd being into everything, and that's really a key point of the show. And it makes a lot for the enjoyment, really. Because even if the crowd weren't into it, then you're wondering, oh, well, hang on a minute, how are they going to react? But they reacted to Jack Perry, they reacted to Hook.
I'm not a get everybody in the card type of guy. I would rather like be, conservative about like who you're allowed on a big show like this. But they've obviously got big plans in the future for both of these, whether we agree with the Jack Perry one or not. You want that footage in the future, don't you, to be able to show that, like, they were part of like this AEW history. Any notes on the match itself, Matt, or should we get into the story that came out as a result of this?
Well, I'll give you the perfect segue. Like, this was the first time I was impressed with Jack Perry. Like, as JP said, Hook's nowhere near ready. This was the Jack Perry show for me. He led him all the way through it. Was quite impressed. And it's just a shame now I won't get to see him for a few months because of what he does.
Oh, there is that. Because that's the thing. We're all like in the building, enjoying the commentators making their entrance. Nigel making sure he gets a big entrance. We saw him through the night. JR getting his big one, of course.
Went for a piss when it happened. I hate that music.
Good to see Excalibur get around. I would say that as an overall note through the night, I liked the change in announce booth when I watched it back. I actually thought Nigel had a good night for Nigel.
Yes, he did.
Had a good night. Shivani had a good night. It was the way I think I'd do it. Jim Ross had as good a night as you can probably get from him with some, Moan tagged on. He'd be the exception to it. But I did like them, mixing it up and switching them around with the exception of Excalibur through the night. That was cool. But while we were enjoying that and enjoying Jim Ross's big entrance, little known to us backstage, there was a ruck going on. Should we talk about it here, JP? Before we get into the main show, we do need to talk about it.
The Phil Chronicles part 735.
Oh, me. I think when we found out was after Punk and Joe, which was almost infuriating because I enjoyed that match so much, and it was like I can't even enjoy it for 5 minutes before finding out that Phil's been a cunt backstage. Like, I was getting messages from Steph. She'd heard from like the media room that stuff had happened. I believe there were some witnesses to it backstage. From a few people. Maybe some of those BritRes extras might have been caught in the midst of it. What do we know right now? They both Meltzer tweeted about an hour ago that they're both suspended. Jungle Jack and CM Punk. Punk's camp have been very quick in getting their side of the story out and saying that whether it was Punk who started things or not, or saying as well specifically that Punk wasn't aware that he was under any kind of suspension, which doesn't say much about the backstage organization at AEW, but. Yeah, that's where we are right now. Obviously, everyone, I think, listening to this knows the story at this point. So there's some in-between version of the two sides of the stories in the JP. Maybe Punk faced Jack Perry. Maybe Jack Perry bumped into CM Punk because he was, like I say, had that rush of blood through his head, was going backstage and had said what he'd said. CM Punk said his now catchphrase of "Do we have a problem?" Like he's the is it Randy in South Park who goes to the football games just to start fights with the other dads? I think that's Punk, apart from the fact that he's starting fights with kids who are 20 years younger than him at this point. It just like doesn't cover him in glory either. And then whichever side of the story you believe, whether it was Punk that started it, whether it was Jack Perry that started it, we know what ended it, which was a front face lock from CM Punk. I love the Punk camp are great, JP. Even I hear from some elements of the Punk camp every now and then, and they're making it clear that Punk was just doing it to diffuse the situation. Rather than throwing blows, he's gonna like choke the cunt out. It's
well
one of those ones.
Phil. Brilliant job, mate. You've sorted it out.
Carl says it's Phil innocent on this occasion.
I feel sorry for him, Benno. I do for this time, but let JP go. I feel sorry for him.
But he's that mate of yours, isn't it? Where it's like, even if he didn't start the fight, why are you always in the fight?
Involved,
Why at 3 a.m. am I in Mackey's breaking you up with some knobheads like every fucking week? He's that, isn't he? Like, that's Punk. Like, it's just, he is the problem. And I'll say this as the Punk fan. There's a reason why it got into this level where, remember when the news story came out a few weeks ago? Oh, there's heat between, and it was like, oh yes, Punk and the Young Bucks makes sense. Punk and Hangman Page makes sense. And it was like, he's also got heat with Britt Baker. It's like, what? And Jungle Boy Jack Perry. And it's like, at the point
don't forget Ryan Nemeth, mate.
Ryan Nemeth.
Daniel's in it as well.
I think based on even on the the anti-Punk version of the story, I'm almost sympathetic, like you say, to him a little bit, because it's, Jack Perry's the one who said what he said on camera. But again, Punk laid the foundations for that, for saying what he did about Hangman Page. I know it wasn't on camera, but he's gone off script more than once, to rip into people backstage. So you can't really have it both ways. But then, there's a reason he's at the center of this every week, JP. Like, there's a reason why. And I think it's been overblown, the fact that this is taking over the news cycle in the face of All In. I think it's sharing the news cycle with All In. There's a reason we're talking about it now. But yeah, it's like, we can't have nice things, can we? Like, this is, it's like a toxic, we say Tony Khan plays EWR or TW, and that's how he books these things. It's that when you got that backstage rating of about 40%, and there's that one cunt backstage who's always getting into shit, and if you don't deal with him rightly, there's going to be more of it. I remember playing that about 3 or 4 years ago and thinking, this is unrealistic now. This never happens anymore. Nope, just add CM Punk to your locker room, and this shit will happen, JP. Like, he's the key ingredient here. He is, and I say that as a gigantic CM Punk fan.
Mate, I'm sat here wearing a CM Punk t-shirt that my kids bought me for my birthday, and even I've just got to the point of like, for fuck's sakes, Phil, you are at the center. I think of him when I was teaching. He is the naughty kid who's always in trouble, but it's never his fault. And like you said, there's a whole different set of standards. You can't kick off about what people say, like if they go deviate from the script on TV, considering one of his most famous moments in wrestling history is him sat down on a stage without a script, saying whatever he wants on TV. Like, this is the thing about him, is he's a massive hypocrite in this way. It probably didn't
in every
help.
way. Every way.
It is. It's just ridiculous. But it probably didn't help that he wasn't picked up from the airport and all that stuff, and all the rest of it. Him having to get on the tube as well. Having someone who
that picture will be in the show notes
to do that commute, it would have pissed me off. Like, I would have fucking hated it. Having to deal with the tubes on Carnival weekend, let alone 80,000 people going to Wembley at the same time, and God knows how many other football fans travelling around London to see any variety of games, and tourists on top of that. For a bloke who doesn't like people, it would have been hell. So I doubt he was in a good mood for that. But he just can't remove himself from situations. That's the problem. He could have just taken the high road and gone, if you're going to do that, do it, whatever, for it, and let Jack Perry do it. I think there's the thing where, I'm bored of it now. Is probably how
I'm still entertained. I should say I'm still entertained. Like, I still laugh at it. Like, because I don't run the company, so it's not my money. The fact that he can't appear All Out is the biggest effect for me, because it's like, shit, I can't watch CM Punk wrestle. I'm split between both camps, JP. I get what you're saying. I did roll my eyes when it first came out, like, for fuck's sake again. But also the visual of him choking on Jungle Jack is
class. I love that.
If you've got to be reasonable, it's still funny, isn't it, Matt? It's like...
I do feel sorry for that. I listened to what you and JP are saying there, but I just think this time, as much as like you're saying, like, he's gone off script and stuff, but he's poking the bear. He still needs to be bigger than it. Yeah, he does. Yeah. But I feel like they're going for him, and as Will saying in the chat there, he knows like that Perry's gonna get like bumming up to the Young Bucks and the Elite and stuff like that. So I think obviously he should be growing up, as you say, he's 20 years older. But it's CM Punk. It doesn't matter who is going to come for him. He's going to go back, isn't he? So I do slightly feel sorry for him on this part, but he still is, as you say, the key ingredient to all this chaos. So
I would be more sympathetic if this had been a one-off thing, but it isn't. It's the latest in a whole stream of these stories.
He might do an investigation, and Simon Miller, whoever was backstage, might go, actually, Punk was acting in self-defense, and we might get some CCTV. You know what I mean? Like,
it's better than hitting him and causing a full-on fight, isn't it? Let's be honest. I know they're saying this to the future. It's way better.
I would say and this is the thing, you get into the he said, she said stuff about it, about who bumped into who and where this happened. And unfortunately, it feels like the sources of these are so divisive that they themselves can't be trusted. There's very much a CM Punk camp and a people who hate CM Punk camp. And there's never like a neutral observer who just says, well, actually, this is what happens here as well. And it comes down to the thing that I've banged on about for the last few weeks, about just an entire lack of discipline. This is your biggest show that you're going to do, and you've got somebody squaring up to someone as they're about to walk to the fucking ring for their match. That's not on. Like, how the fuck was that allowed to happen? By the way, it's not like Phil ran out to the ring. Like, the Samoa Joe entrance is like, why is Jack Perry knocking around there? Surely he should have been ushered, like, getting people out of Gorilla and the rest of it away. But it is, you know, it's one of these things where, like,
I do love the fact though that apparently, you know, Jack Perry got ushered out the arena, stuck around for an hour, hang around, then eventually either got sent home or went by his own volition. Again, depending on whether you believe the Punk camp or not. And like fucking Billy Big Bollocks there, what did he do? Order Nando's for the entire roster. Apparently he was there a few times this weekend. Some people saw him there on Saturday as well. What do you reckon he got Matty? A couple of butterfly chickens, some spicy rice. I think he's a spicy rice fan, I reckon myself.
Oh, definitely a hummus and the drizzle oil. Definitely all that with the pizzas to dip in.
Imagine he got the level of Nando's that we ended up getting in Oxford. Just imagine if he'd been given that. Imagine the shit that would have started if that had happened.
What do the Nando's do? Like, I went because like me and Steph literally went to Nando's on Monday night when we got home. Just for the meal, for all the stories of Nando's kind of made us hungry. Oh, Nando's took about 40 minutes to come. Imagine you were in that Nando's after Punk's put an order in for the entire AEW roster. Like, you're not getting your food anytime soon, are you? You know what I mean? He's taking it up for everyone.
But it does seem, and I think this is the point on here where the lawlessness is there, where like a Ryan Nemeth and a Jack Perry can just go and go, fuck it, I'm just going to start some shit with him and can kind of get away with it for the most part. I'm not convinced he's going to be sacked or anything else from it. And you can do investigations and the like, but you haven't got the kind of culture and atmosphere backstage, which suggests you shouldn't be doing this stuff.
Well, it's coming through. Our chat are kind of saying, so it's happening. Like, I think tonight, I think Brian Alvarez has been on Wrestling Observer live, I think, talking about this.
Saying that, Brian.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I met Brian Alvarez. He was lovely. Had a quick chat.
Jolly's godfather, mate.
Unfortunately, he's got COVID now, so hopefully I don't. But yeah, it was fun. That was fun. That was my biggest mark-out moments of the weekend. I was just sat there, and him and Meltzer walked past, and I almost involuntarily was like, Brian, Dave, hello. And just started talking to them. Meltzer was in his own universe, by the way. He took more photos than any wrestler I saw all weekend.
I've seen him on the most pictures yet going around Twitter.
That's the level of star Big Dave was. But yeah, Brian was very nice. Got a nice little picture
find
with
someone,
me and him, the podcasters.
Find someone who loves you the way that Dave loves tie-dye. That's what I'll say, because
he's seen some air miles, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think around his neck when I saw him. It was brilliant.
You're taking that hoodie off his cold, dead shoulders. I'll tell you that, because he's not giving it up for love the money.
Fashion icon, in my opinion. But yeah, I did see our good friend Brian Alvarez and your good friend JP. But yeah, apparently said on Observer Live that Tony Khan witnessed it. And there's even versions of the story out there that now like TV like screens were folded on Tony Khan. That's how close he was to what happened. So there's another witness. The boss might be a reason he's not texting Phil this week. You know, I think that might be the reason there's been no contact with the Punk camp. Like,
do you think there's just a thing though where people think if they just push it, he'll just fuck off? He'll just fuck off and leave.
I think Punk will. I think from the bits
he will.
You hear, I think that's where he's at this point. I think he's just like, fuck it. Do I need this shit? You know, where he goes next is the thing. I think that's it. I think we might have seen Punk's, and we'll get into it in a minute. You know, the last great CM Punk match there live at Wembley. So James, you say that it's like, oh well, we managed to get to All In. Is that not all we wanted when he came back? It was just get us to All In, and we got there barely because that was it. There were other reports saying he was not going to go up there. They were going to scrap the match at one point. Samoa Joe was even kicking off. Like that's Phil. It came to the wire, but we did manage to see him just about. It's either that or, like you said, JP, if we were going to go by, if I ran this wrestling company as a fan, I wouldn't see him Punk to stay. As a fan, I relish some of these, but then there's part of me that's like, okay, this is kind of enough now. But like, you know, I do get some enjoyment out of it. I love the product on screen. God help us with Collision, if Punk is around as well. So as a fan, I absolutely want this to carry on. If he choked out another one of the elite spates every week, personally, I'd laugh at the news story and maybe roll my eyes a little bit, but I can live my life. If I'm Tony Khan and I'm running this wrestling company, I can't say I wouldn't sack him. I think I might sack him at this point or just send him home. But that doesn't mean Tony Khan's going to make that call. Like, I could is not the most likely scenario coming out of this based on everything we know so far for Jack Perry to be gone for the next 6 months and Punk to be back for All Out at the weekend, or, you know, at least back in, 6 weeks. He'll be the real world champion, maybe at that point. Like, I honestly still think that's the most likely outcome here, JP. Don't know about you.
There's a part of me, how do you deal with a situation? How do you deal with a problem like CM Punk? I mean, it's the thing about this is you've still got the TV deal that's kind of on the line, and a lot of this depends on Collision. And I know you're thinking to yourself, well, CM Punk is the most, and he has proven it, I suppose, in the limited kind of sample size that we have for Collision ratings, that CM Punk is still a big part of, like, he's a big part of that show when it does well. It's just that, is it worth the overall grief? I'm not convinced he goes and everything goes back to normal. I'm not sure that necessarily is the case. And if he leaves, you will end up thinking that there's a massive missed opportunity for what you could have done having CM Punk return from retirement into your company. There's still, that's been ultimately missed out on. But if you can't put, like, it just happens all the time with him. It just happens, seems to happen every single week at every show. There is some sort of grief. There is some sort of drama. He is the naughty kid who's always involved, but it's never his fault, or there's always an excuse or something else. And after a while, you just get really tired of it. And you, like, I don't know how, I mean, in theory, there'll be people saying, well, you can actually elevate certain people. I see you and mentioned here in the chat about Jay White being the main guy in Collision. That's fine in theory. I just don't think for ratings and stuff, it wouldn't necessarily help. It wouldn't, like, it would just sort of sink further and further into kind of Rampage territory.
But he won't be a roster.
And there's $1 billion on the line.
Yeah, it only exists because of Punk.
That's what I mean. He won't have to. He'd have everyone back off Dynamite on Collision, wouldn't he? That's how they'd solve that for sure. If he's gone.
But then, but then there's travel, there's extra work, extra dates, there's things like that. Are they going to be tied into the mix as well? I mean, is he going to? The problem is effectively for me that it's lawless backstage. That's how it is, and people are kind of doing their own thing, and there is no firm hand, and it all comes down to that ill discipline. And what are they going to do to actually sort this out? And I'm not convinced that they are. I'm just not convinced, like you, that Tony Khan will do that. He thinks somehow he can bullshit his way past it. I don't think he can.
No,
with this, because like, at what stage are you just going to get people refusing to turn up? And there's no, like, I mentioned it before, like in other companies at other times, and don't get me wrong, you brought up some good examples of where people have managed to kind of get around it, particularly like a Shawn Michaels and the like. But that was probably with him when there was no other people that you could go to in terms of like top stars and the rest of it. And he felt like he was kind of, well, it's Shawn, or kind of, it's Shawn, Brett, no one really at that stage. And I think the thing is with Punk here is, how close are you to that TV deal? There's the fact that Wembley, this show exists and there's 81,000 and you can use that. Is that enough of a selling point for a Warner Brothers Discovery to go, do you know what? We need to stick with this, because look at the numbers that they can end up drawing overseas and the rest of it. Yeah.
Well, just quickly, and we should move on. We have got a whole Wembley pay-per-view to talk about. Just the latest we know. Apparently, Brian Alvarez has said there's a lot of witnesses to it, including Tony Khan. Apparently, the version Alvarez is saying that Punk shoved him and put him in a choke, and it's broken up immediately, and that monitors fell on Tony. Samoa Joe broke the fight up. Apparently, Punk was angry, threatened to quit, didn't want to wrestle. Things got delayed 10 minutes for. Apparently, they asked FTR and the Bucks to open the show, and they weren't ready. So they asked the Golden Elite, and they were like, I suppose we can. So they were going to go on first. Joe was pissed off because he wants to wrestle at Wembley, so they got things together, and that's why the Punk Joe match did end up going on first as planned. Apparently, Brian talked about how Miro tweeted about Punk initiating the fight was bullshit, and now saying that apparently there was a second near instance when Punk came through the curtain where Miro confronted Punk. And Punk asked Miro to step outside. So there you go. There's an added one. Punk Camper denying that happened. It should be said as well. But there you go. And apparently it wasn't Punk saying he wasn't suspended. He wasn't contacted to be told he was suspended, but AEW did contact his legal team, so that's how we know that. But yeah, at the minute, Alvarez is saying it's unlikely that this gets tied up by All Out. But again, you guys might know more than us by the time tomorrow comes.
That'll go down well in Chicago, won't it?
There's some weird noises going on in JP's room.
Sorry, that was my cherry Coke vape, because I'm properly hooked on just vaping the entire time. I can't exist without it.
Not Pepsi for Phil? Ah, shame. Yeah, Alvarez saying morale is down and that, yeah, something has to be done. But how many times have we said that? And yeah, there we go. That's where we are right now. Apparently, the Punk thing put a damper on All In. And yeah, like I say, it has been a distraction. Hence why we've just talked about it for so long as well. But yeah, apparently, Brian is denying the denial now. That's the level of story we're at on the Miro part of this story. Miro better be careful. He won't be on Collision on Saturdays if he keeps kicking off there. Fucking hell. Well, Miro got none of those Nando's, did he? He's a big lad. He'd probably ate most of it, so probably for the best. Anyway, but there's a reason you keep CM Punk around, which is the main show did then start, and we did have Punk and Samoa Joe kicking things off as we innocently on the stands, JP, took in the first match of the pay-per-view, which was a banger. I absolutely love this. We were asked at our live show, I think somebody literally said to me, "You even looking forward to anything on this show, Ben?" I was like, no, genuinely. I'm going to see Samoa Joe and CM Punk in front of 80,000 people, 90,000 people it turned out to be at Wembley. So, of course, I'm going to have a good time. Might have some, and this is going to be the story of the show, I think, JP, as we get into it. I don't think any of our criticism of the build was proven incorrect. I think, anyone who wants to be out there and have a little victory lap, because we're about to say there were good matches here, maybe listen to our audio. We knew there were going to be good matches. If you want to listen to it, if you want to criticize us for what we're going to say through the show, that was a great atmosphere there when you got 80,000 people in a stadium. Of course there was going to be a great fucking atmosphere, and of course it elevated the show, and we got plenty of good to say there. But one of the most obvious things was going to be, JP, despite my maybe misgivings about some of the build and how we got there, especially that last collision as a go home. Punk and Joe went out there and had, for my money, maybe the best match of the night. Maybe you guys won't go that far, but I thought this was a really strong way to open the show. Just maybe unexpected, JP.
I loved this thoroughly, and I probably loved it because of the atmosphere where CM Punk came out and he was fucking hated where I was sat. And I was one of the few people shouting, "Go on, Phil," like at that point in time, because I was just fucking loving it at that stage. I really was. But I thought this was, because what was it? It was 15 minutes, something or just a little under it as well. And it was like, it was again, Joe looked great. Like he came out to an absolutely like monster pop, as well. Like it felt like he was being treated like a really big star, and he felt like it.
People didn't realize that going in. Like he was the face of, because that's the thing about this show. There's 80,000 pretty hardcore wrestling fans in there. He was the face of Ring of Honor at its peak. He was all over the wrestling channel at its peak. I'm sure not all 80,000 people watching the wrestling channel, but a little pocket definitely were. And he was, when TNA was good and they were coming here and they were filling arenas themselves, he was one of the main guys. I think people didn't quite grasp that when you saw his face and name all over the posters leading into this event. He's a gigantic name here, and he was treated as such, JP.
He was. And he felt like it, and he wrestled like it as well. And it made me think, actually, there's juice in this run if you want to go with it. If you're looking for someone else to plug into like kind of top line programs, I wouldn't be averse to Samoa Joe in there, because he's kind of proven that you deliver a proper stage, you put him in there against a big name opponent, and he can turn up and he can do it. I've been more inspired watching Joe over the last, like since Collision started, frankly. Well, I thought actually I've gotten back into Samoa Joe. He didn't feel like the kind of shadow of himself that we'd seen for quite a long time. But I thought the match was, the Terry Funk step over toe hold stuff just seemed to be lost on people there as well. The Terry Funk tribute there, that seemed to be lost. The whole idea of the Pepsi plunge off the top was fucking great. I didn't see that coming at all. I don't think most people would have expected that.
For a Pepsi plunger for the 80,000 people. Like,
I know.
This was one for the sickos. I'll get into it in a minute. Go on.
But I thoroughly enjoyed it, because it was just a good, like, kind of stiff felt like two lads who knew each other, go out there, like laying into each other as well. I mean, the spot where he sort of swung him into the commentary table as well looked like it fucking hurt.
Amazing,
amazing.
amazing.
Oh, that was cracking on there as well. And like I said, I think the crowd being so hyped for this, and this is going to be like, again, the common theme of matches, I think, on their own, on a standard AEW pay-per-view in front of, say, 10,000 in the States. We're not going to think of them this way. But you got a crowd like this who are going to be up for everything. It just elevated it. And I didn't think Joe lost anything from it in the mix. If anything, I think Joe gained like from this in terms of like what his AEW run could end up being as a result, particularly if Punk's not going to be around for a few weeks. I think there's, you know, I'll reiterate that point. But yeah, I'm with you. I really enjoyed this. I'll probably go match rating wise, I'm going to say 4 stars because I think it didn't probably have that kind of epic nature to it as much as anything, but it was definitely one of my matches of the weekend.
Yeah, what did you think, Matt? I know you're anti Joe in general.
No, you know what?
Guy.
Seriously, like it was 2 veterans who knew what they were doing, and I loved it. Honestly, I think they put it on at the beginning as well. The first match helped everyone. Joe, hearing the reaction, like everyone said, was having the time of his life. We were saying that watching it. He was having such a great time. He was smirking all the way through the match. Obviously, with what happened, we didn't know backstage as well. But these 2 went in there, and like I just said, 2 veterans. You had that spot with the commentary table, bit of juice for the occasion as well from Phil. You're saying the Terry Funk stuff got lost. The Terry Bollea stuff didn't get lost, JP, because when he hit the 2 Cena shoulder tackles and the spinning slam, and then went for the 5 knuckle, but then done the Hogan thing. The place was hating him. The pocket behind me, where there was a couple of CM Punk, but he was getting fucking booed to hell. And it was one of them for me with Punk. I always have a go with you, Benno, back and forth about him, and as I know you're a fan, but when his music hit, just that realization that I hadn't seen him in over a decade live, obviously since the WWE shows, and I was going ballistic, Benno, when I heard Cult of Personality. I was going wild, filmed his entrance, stuff like that. Really enjoyed this. And as you're going to go into for you and Jamesy and the likes, you've got to finish your story with that Pepsi plunge off the top of yours.
It was one I'd have to take selfishly, because I think, you know, if I'm being honest, with all our criticism of the build, like, yeah, I think we shocked some people by calling a spade with it. It was an odd match to book for your biggest show ever, especially considering they'd just done it on TV, especially considering, you know, Joe's, you know, slot in AEW. Obviously, you know, massively over with the UK fans and a segment of the audience, but it was just an odd one to do. Was that the Punk match we all kind of expected going in? But I think as the show got closer, especially the day of, it was like, you know what though? Like, I'm just going to be selfish and I'm just going to enjoy it because it's for me, this match. And it absolutely was. Like, everything about it. You say, get Joe out there, even like getting an Olay chance going, like again, like it was 2004, 2005 Ring of Honor, or even the Coventry Skydome, where they had a much worse version of this match, the forgotten original Joe Punk 4, and that I was also live at. But yeah, all of those callbacks, like the great spot, you know, with Joe trying to walk out the way of the dive and Punk catching with a Rana, only to get the walk away from the dive when he did the springboard to the outside. All of that stuff was great. Joe's aggression was great, like you say, into that table spot, which was massively memorable. The blood on Punk, and just how much Punk was living her up and loving it. Like, you were actually here with the boos in the stadium, aggressive or playing along. Bit of both. I was a little bit shocked with how prevalent the boos were when he came out. It's kind of like, he's such a big star. I kind of thought it'd be a bit more split than it was. I would say it was more 70-30 than it was, you know, any lesser than that. Obviously, I was part of the 30 cheering on for Punk as well. But this is what we're gonna lose if he goes. Like, he's a pig in shit when he gets these heel reactions, and there's people out there who don't think that's what he's going for, or think it's like Cena, which is why he's doing those Cena spots. But this is what he's going for, and presumably the long-term plan is for him to eventually fucking turn heel. Although, you know, the other long-term plan appeared to be a match with MJF, which is clearly not happening anytime soon either, based on the on the TV. But no, it wasn't just a greatest hits for the sickos like me and Jamesy in the crowd. There was all those little things you talked about there. The pacing of it was spot on. Again, two veterans who knew how to pace a match for an arena crowd, and even though it only went 13-14 minutes, it was at a slightly labored pace that allowed the crowd to go along with it. There are times I think when you're there live at shows, you don't fully digest the story being told in a match. They made it for a big stadium crowd very clear what the story was, as Punk was getting laid out by Joe, and then he managed to come back, and he was just the only knock on the match would probably be the Hogan spot that you mentioned there, Matty. Yeah. I didn't love when Joe did the full Hulk up. I was like, hang on, what are we doing now? We're doing tributes to Terry. Like, what are we doing? Like, that was too much. Felt like they came up with that on the fly in the match. I was like, maybe don't do that. Maybe for the story that they were telling, with like we're going through there, maybe the finish came a little bit out of nowhere. But again, that was something for the sickos. Like, it was always the thing with their big matches. If Punk just hit the Pepsi plunge, he was going to win, as we talked about when we did the mixtape episodes. And there were a couple of times where he came close in their matches, and it was almost like, well, if you were going to have one last match between the two of them, again, I would like to scrub the Owen Hart one from existence. Let's pretend that didn't happen. Punk finally hitting the Pepsi plunge and being able to capitalize it on pin him would be the way you would end this story. And I've got to say, I can understand criticism for doing ROH Law in front of 80,000 people, but for me, at the biggest show I'll ever go to, getting to see ROH Law was fucking great. So, I'll tell you, take it as a selfish win, and I think a lot of people would say, as JP said, that it was a lot of people's best match of the show, and I would go. I've seen some 4.75s and stuff out there. I think I'd still go I'd go about 4.25, maybe 4.5. If you'd asked me in the arena, I'd have said 4.5. Watching it back on tape, I was like, well, maybe I got a little bit obviously swept up to it. Maybe I shouldn't have watched it back on tape. Maybe I went to 4.25, maybe just because of the brevity of it, and maybe that the Joe Hulk up spot was the only negative I could say. But all in all, it was just fucking great. It was a little bit odd to see it as an opener. I kind of did think people were still arriving at that point, because you've got to get so many people from the stadium. You would have thought this would be a match you would hold off for, when it gets to nighttime and it's later. But I think maybe the decision was paid off, and it wouldn't be card placement I would do. And obviously it caused a bit of the backstage drama. But I think if you want to talk about a card goes, it was a great way to start, and it kind of showed the rest of the card there how these things are done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is, and if it's the last time we see, well, we got our fun, and Chicago has to miss out. Again, to quote Jack Perry, "Cry me a river."
That will be the outro song, nailed on.
Not hardcore country.
And now I've read about that. Now I'm back to, I just want him to come back. I don't care. You know what? Fire Miro as well. Not asked. Just keep Phil around.
The true colours are coming out now, Ben. Well,
anyone who tries to fight with him, sack them instead.
I like that. I like it.
I'm trying to be a balanced podcaster here, Matt, and not be like one of those weirdo elite fans. But he's worthy of the praise, because he is one of the best wrestlers that have ever existed. But he's also worthy of the criticism he gets. That's as reasonable adults, we've got to land on CM Phil. But yeah, from there, as they cleaned up things backstage, and Miro and Punk were offering there, one outside on the street, like a couple of lads in a pub in Preston on a Friday night. We then went to the second match on the show, which was the Golden Elite against Bullet Club Gold. First up, and I think it's a positive of the entire night, JP, the entrances. I think you talk about WrestleMania feel. They nailed the WrestleMania feel with a lot of these entrances. And I think the one for you, Matty, a lot of the wrestlers had their WrestleMania gear on.
Oh, I was loving that.
Everyone was dressed to the nines for anything for this. Like, Bullet Club Gold looked amazing. I watched their entrance back on tape. Because we haven't mentioned it, the tunnel. I love that video.
I love it.
Yeah. I remember them doing something like that for the Super Bowl. I'm sure I've seen live performances with that. But it looked fucking brilliant, and they looked gigantic. And they made sure as well, your boy Jay White at the back, Matty, looked like
all in white.
Looking shredded as well. Yeah. He'd been on a juice cleanse like me that week. He was,
he's not as shredded as you, Ben. Come on.
He was looking great though, wasn't he? that was brilliant. I love the guns with them as well. I think it's a stable.
It's a good act, isn't it? What I've seen.
You might not have put together, but it's a great act. It really is. Maybe when Jay gets a bit more serious, he gets towards the top of the card, you maybe want to not do so much of the
tone it down a bit. Yeah,
but it's so entertaining, isn't it? I thought they looked like stars, and then the lads came out after it as well. Like, speaking of stars, JP, I thought Kota Ibushi got a decent response. Hangman Page, we can talk about. I think even in acknowledging what a great time we had, I don't think anyone with a straight face can tell me this was the once we come out of this match, the best use of Hangman Page. He was a little bit lost in the shuffle, but I think the biggest thing you could say about these entrances, JP, was Kenny Omega when he came out. Like, probably if it wasn't the number one pop of the night, the 2 or 3 of the night. Like, if you were in no doubt going into this match that this was, possibly the biggest star in AEW, and he looked just like $1 million coming out. And I don't know if we really want to get into the argument together whether there should be a singles match, but maybe you can make that argument when you see how much he means to this fan base. Did see the only negative to say on the merch, because again, they did pretty much nail the merch. A lot of people saying there weren't any solo Kenny Omega t-shirts. It was Golden Elite or Elite or nothing. But he was treated like a megastar here on this stage, JP.
Oh, people went fucking batshit around me when he came out as well. I mean,
dwarfed everyone else in the match.
He did dwarf.
Absolutely right, including Hangman Page.
Yeah, he felt like people were buzzing to see him. So I'm not going to make the obvious point of imagine if because the problem I had with this match was, and it was good, but this is very much a main event on Dynamite before you have the pay-per-view match the week after. That's how it kind of felt to me when the match was going on.
I think it was better than that, but I'll let you talk. Just for the haters, I'll say that. I think it's better than that. I think
it wasn't a bad match. I just wasn't emotionally invested. And I think,
I can see that.
And this is where the live bias kind of comes into the mix, where I've got people who are so invested around me because they're so buzzing to see Kenny Omega that you just can't help but go along and get kind of swept up with it as well. And I have to say, I know you talk about the entrances, that Don Callis just white noise theme that he has, if you can call it that as well, is fucking brilliant.
JP.
It is genuinely brilliant. And I think Takeshita looks great as well. Like, I'd be enthusiastic for their singles match. Like,
that song
should have really been happening here, but
I'd have that next to the Right to Censor theme on it there, just a fucking double CD there, like, because that
you'd never play it though, buddy. You'd never listen to it.
You couldn't, unless you just wanted people to leave the room. Like, it's the kind of music you'd put on.
People if they come round the house or something.
Like, time I was at a party and I put on Chaz and Dave, and people just fucking left the room. They didn't want to know at all. But I think, like, as a match, it was very much like, it felt like kind of a lot of the greatest hits. What I did like about it was, again, talking about Jay White, and we've obviously been very critical of when he was in New Japan as like the kind of top guy but his positioning and knowing, and this is the thing he's kind of proven in this, particularly this Collision run, just his ring sense and ring awareness of being in the right place at the right time in order to be, and his adaptability, I think, was just like kind of outstanding as well.
You've corrected course in Jay White, it feels like. Like, he's still not where maybe you'd bring him in your promotion. I think that first month, should just be forgotten of how they used him. But he's coming across more like a star. More Collision has been a godsend for him. Like, he could main event next year's Wembley. I'm not, that should probably be a given considering where he came from in New Japan. But it wasn't a given based on that first month of AEW appearances. And like, you can see it now. Like, they're getting it right with him right now.
Him as a heel versus, say, an MJF for a title on a Full Gear, I'd be completely down with that. Or that Wrestle Dream pay-per-view that they're going to be doing soon enough as well. Can
I take Liam's comments? Can I take it? Because
yes,
absolutely right.
Yes,
Kota Ibushi. If you hadn't seen Kota Ibushi in New Japan before in your life, you would think this. You just think he's a bit shit. Is this still Kota Ibushi? Like, is he? I saw a tweet about that. They're trying to tell the story of Kenny Omega being like, "Oh, has he still got it?" But telling that in real life about Kota Ibushi, he looked awful. Like, even just from watching from the stands, like, you could see he was out of place. He was in the way a couple of times of other people's spots. His spots didn't look good. Like the moonsault one he did with Kenny, he fluffed again. He doesn't look like the same human being. He doesn't. Controversial. He wasn't worthy of the spot. Like, I think your law merchants will tell you there was a load of story going on here. They didn't tell you of it. I heard there were going to be like, looks between the two, between Hangman Page, and he was going to stand and look conflicted between Kenny and Ibushi, and we were all going to take in the story. They didn't do any of that. It didn't happen on screen. It happened in your fucking head and in your Tumblr blog. Like, it wasn't there. And yes, you can justify Kota Ibushi being there if that's the law story you're telling. But as far as like what he brings to the table, I don't think he belonged in there in Wembley. Like, he looked completely off the pace again. Didn't make up for the blood and guts appearance, and he stood out as the clear sixth worst wrestler in the match. And I know I'm talking about Kota Ibushi. I know, saw him go back and forth with Jay White. That was like a nice little mirage in this match where that looked quite good and reminded me of the 5-star wrestler Kota Ibushi absolutely is and was in his pomp, but not right now, not with the performances she's getting. And it's a vanity pick in getting these spots. It's a vanity pick in getting to team up with Kenny and be here. It's not something that's been earned from the TV or not something that's earned based on, how over he is within AEW, despite what we all know about him as a legend in Japan, in New Japan and DDT. But yeah, I think he really dragged the match down. And I'm saying that about him and not Juice Robinson. He's usually the one I pick on in these spots. That says a lot, doesn't it? Like, again, and I say that still probably being higher than you two on the matches, and overall was a really good finish and stretch. The finish itself was set up for All Out, which we can kind of knock, but it was a really good version of one of these matches because Kota Ibushi aside, all these wrestlers, and including him in certain spots are fantastic. So, they gave you a fantastic standalone match. It just, those criticisms do still stand, Matt.
Yeah, I'm more leaning towards JP. It was good, as you say. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like at all memorable. As you say, from a booking standpoint, the finish was good to lead to the singles match. They nailed that aspect. And if I'm being biased again,
where's that, mate? Is that the 150,000 seater in Chicago?
No, I know, but if we're talking strictly booking, to say, of course, it should be the other way around or whatever. Yeah, but from a booking technical standpoint, they did get it. Kenny getting taking it in and getting it for the next show. We all agree that it should have been whatever. But this was the first time, boys, being back. Like, the tears come out, Benno. When Kenny come out, I was gone. This was like, I loved seeing him, as what you just said, everyone in the stadium. I was treating him like the biggest megastar going. I absolutely love seeing him live. But as once again, what you have said, especially, I just envy Jay White. It should have just been that for me at Wembley. And
I was thinking that. Day long. With 6 weeks worth of build. Where you actually tell, what? Yeah. Imagine this: they cut promos on each other and tell you why they don't like each other over a long period of time.
They've got that story, haven't they? Yeah, they have got it.
Yeah, in the past. How about do a story in this promotion? How about use 6 weeks worth of telly to give me reasons why they hate each other in this fucking world? How about that, eh? I'm getting angry, but I agree. Like, I would love that.
Right. It's right.
Could have done that, 100%.
Yeah, it's true. Because, I mean, so much of this relies on stuff that happened in another promotion 5 years ago as well. I would just even say him and Takeshita, because I think Takeshita is so good in ring wise that even if you'd had that match here and saved the Jay White one for because that's a story you need to they could have just told that there and then do something with like this kind of 6-man leading to then a singles match with Jay White down further on the line on a pay-per-view. But I mean, I'm just sort of pissing into the wind.
You can book it however you want, folks. You could have done you could have cashed the match here, and like you say, there could have been, if you can't do 2 Kenny singles matches 2 weeks in a row because he's so fucking half broken and whatever. Yeah, I'm sympathetic to that. Do the 6-man at Chicago, whatever. They have the pay-per-view to sell for next week, so it is what it is. But I say all that with the caveat. What's your star rating on the match? Like, where would you go on it? I would
3.5.
Yeah, 3.5. Just it wasn't. Yeah, just 3.
Not much. I go 3.75. I was close to 4. I do think there was some really, really good stuff like in the tail end of this. It really built well. I've seen people go way higher than that, but again, maybe it's a lack of investments. Well, yeah, you are going to get that.
They're the elite guy, the elite fans. But you're alluding to surely there.
Yeah, I think again, you can't look at this match and tell me that was the best use of Hangman Page. Like somebody said, he hasn't had a singles match since January in AEW.
Is that real? Is that real?
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Fucking hell.
That's where we are. At this point.
That can't be real. That. Fucking hell.
Hopefully, I haven't just made that up. Somebody check. I'll delete it off the podcast if I'm wrong. It's been a long weekend, but I mean, it says everything, doesn't it? He's not. you know, he wasn't really a factor on this show. He made up. They needed the elite guys to do a multi-man for Kenny to not do the singles match or whatever the logistics was. And yeah, Hangman Page suffered. I think Moxley's the other candidate for, you know, probably worst use on this show, but Hangman Page is up there with Kenny, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like, he did get a good response here, but he got a response worthy of somebody who hasn't really been featured on TV, who hasn't, you know, since the it would have been Revolution at the start of the year, obviously since that, like, hasn't really been around, has he? You know, weeks go by and you don't see Hangman Page on TV, and then when he is there, he's in the background of all of this stuff. So yeah, I might have exaggerated it. Revolution was the last time we saw him against Moxley. That was the 5th of March.
Oh, the Texas Death Match was that?
It is September in 2 days. So yeah, that's Hangman Page in AEW right now.
Wild.
Bollocks, isn't it?
Well, anyway, there we go. A couple of ratings in there. Benno special of 3.75. Yeah, fair enough. But there we go. That's that, and that's about as much time as that match deserved. The good one for the house. We just say.
There's a cracking Dynamite main event, like I said earlier on.
Yeah, I agree, JP, really.
A great road to tag. Is probably what we got there. That people will be putting in the notebooks, but wouldn't really mean anything by the time the real show came around. From there, again, strange card placement. FTR versus the Young Bucks, and came up next. Again, it was like all of the stuff that I was really interested in, or really into, just finding out, you know, what it was going to look like. The Kenny match, particularly, all felt like it was coming early on this pay-per-view.
I had the same feeling, Benno. The first 4 or 5 matches, I couldn't believe it. Yeah, couldn't believe the placements.
This one, I think I'm going to be, if I was maybe slightly higher than you on that one, I think I'm going to be slightly lower than the consensus on this one. I didn't want to give an opinion on it, to be honest. People were asking me about it, and it was like, it felt like one of those matches where I was like, am I just wrong? You know, sat where I was sat in the stadium. It didn't fully grab me. It was obvious what they were doing. Saying that wasn't that obvious based on the entrances. What the fuck were the Bucks doing with that ridiculous super kick's gonna knock you out thing that everyone was just sat there confused by? I feel like, I mean, I want to make a sweeping statement like we did about Hangman Page there, JP, on overness, because the Bucks were way down there as far as like most over acts on this show. Like, they were in the lower mid cards kind of region, I would say, as far as
nowhere near the Acclaimed.
They came out. Nowhere near. That's interesting, isn't it? And maybe it was partly the music. Maybe it's partly
didn't help.
If Hangman Page stands in the background a lot, the Bucks, you know, they've just been in the background of, you know, big elite feuds or whatever it is. They've not been themselves for a while. And yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think the build for a match that didn't really need that much build, I think the build they did do was done badly. I think that sit down that we didn't get a chance to talk about last week was horrendous. Bringing up YouTube videos from 5 years ago, like, you know, like anyone cares at this point. Oh, is that what FTR means? So, like, maybe it's an offhand reference, but there should be more here, and there wasn't more. And, you know, the Bucks were terrible. And I know they were leaning into the heel aspect of the characters, which might be another reason why their overness is all over the place, because are they faces, are they heels? Who knows in every given moment? All I know is that they're thoroughly unlikable when they go into that mode. FTR went much more likable because they were arguing about the fucking YouTube videos. And then the match came, and for a match that should have natural stakes, it didn't feel like it had many. Didn't feel like the Bucks really cared about the tag belts. Don't think that was really very well emphasized in the build. And then, I might be on an island with the match, but it just felt like they were going through. You could see what they were doing with some of the spots. You know, the Northern Lights kind of stuff that were going into the Germans that lasted about 10 minutes with
that done me in that bit.
And that Jax. Yeah. Jax was absolutely sandbagging, by the way. Like, I don't know what was going on there, but he wasn't helping the situation. I could see what they were doing. I could see the references they were plotting in. I could see like the epic tag spots they were setting up with all that, like the mirror spots and all the throwbacks and all of that stuff. But it just felt worked at it. Like, if Punk and Joe was worked in a slightly slower pace in a positive sense, I thought this was in a negative sense. It felt like a slow 20 minutes for me and just didn't get going to the level of the previous 2 matches. And I just didn't love it at the end of the day. I'm not saying it was bad. I'd still go 3.5 on it, but I really expected to go higher on this, and even watching back on tape, didn't really change my mind on it, JP.
I'll be interested to see this again on tape because I'm kind of similar to you. I'm probably going to go 3.75.
That's higher than me.
I mean, and that's because there's bits of it I enjoyed. And again, watching it with a non-fan who it was kind of like, because there was stuff in the finishing stretches and some of the near falls that were genuinely good. I thought, and I wasn't, and still the result of it was necessarily in doubt. But I'm kind of with you about the Bucks, because a lot of this build kind of summed them up. It's a build built about passive aggressive snarkiness, and that's kind of all they are. And if that doesn't appeal to you, then I don't like it, and it doesn't appeal to me at all. It just feels like they're half-arsing it as much as anything else, and it's tedious now. And I think that's where I kind of am with them as characters. And I felt this way for like a really, really long time about the Bucks, and thinking, we said for a while ago when their contracts were coming up, it was like they should go, because they're never going to know what it's like in WWE. There still would have been the Usos match and stuff like that. There would have been things possibly that like of some kind of interest, but they just look really deflated. And I don't know whether or not that's because they've hit their level before. And let's face it, as much as I dislike that aspect of the Elite, they were for a really long time the best tag team in the world when there was no one else around. Like, and that cannot be understated. But I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it because it feels like there's a general lack of enthusiasm from them. There's like a real lack of personality, which in a stadium show you kind of need to shine through, and they didn't shine through in a venue like that. There are other people who felt more naturally suited to that kind of a big stage. I was surprised by the result. I mean, I think with all of the talk with Cash Wheeler and the gun and everything else like that, and his arrest, whether or not it would be an easy thing to take the belts off them. But they didn't. And what, we're going to get them going heel? Are they going to go proper heel? Are we just going to end up with more confused Elite stuff? Are we going to effectively end up with a rematch of, I don't know, the Golden Lovers versus the Bucks, or the Kenny and Hangman again versus the Bucks? Is this the circles where they're going to go into, where they have to be press ganged into having a match against the champions? Like, it feels like against their will, because they'd sooner be doing other stuff. And it's like, well, why are you there, lads? And that's kind of how I felt. Like, I enjoyed like the other two matches that they had much more than this. And it probably didn't help as well that their streamers went onto the big screens and they were a fucking distraction.
And in like the girders, people got all stuck.
And on the girders. Yeah. And it just was there. And I just thought, well, that must be really pissing some people off for that. But yeah, it was. Afterwards, I just sort of felt like I had more questions than answers, and not in a good way either. Not, oh, where's this story going next? I just thought Bucks didn't shake their hands. Right, yeah, well, whatever. Why? What's the reason for this? Like, this feels like it's a heel turn, possibly for the sake of a heel turn, which is a suggestion that as a company, they don't know really what to do with them. But I don't think they know what to do with them at that point. They just, it looks to me, they look very, very lackluster. That's what I would say. And FTR, and we've seen FTR have enough good matches on Collision, I think, for them not to be tarred with the same brush. I've seen them have doing enough enjoyable work. But like another match between them on here, it didn't feel like a matchup between the two best tag teams in the 2010s going into the 2020s. It didn't feel like that. Instead, it was a match where two people had a gun against their head in order to come out, pardon the pun. And I don't think it was Cash Wheeler who put the gun against their heads either in order to have it. But yeah, so I go 3.75 because they are good wrestlers. And as we've said a lot, they're good wrestlers who are capable of having good wrestling matches. But yeah, as Andy says here in the chat, that trio shite has hurt them. And it has hurt them loads. And it's made them, it feels like it's just quite lazy, self-referential stuff from them. And
but JP, you're saying you're sick of it, but there's another 3 or 4 years worth coming, isn't it? Obviously, with them signing up, as you say. So, what are they going to do? Like, as you say there. But I thought, to be honest, I was leaning towards 4 here, because I did think that last 10 minutes, boys, where it got me. Like the shatter machine when Jackson kicked out, and then when.
It was some good earballs, yeah.
Yeah, they were really, really good. Like, and the fans bit on them as well. They were really well done. So that proper roped me in completely. But that Northern Lights and German, like 80-minute spot in the middle, literally killed me. No, I would turn to the lads and was going, "What the fuck are they doing here?" It was just so convoluted. And actually, the sandbagging didn't help. Like, but wow, yeah. But I thought it turned out a good match, and Obviously, you're not interested, JP, in the turning down the shake of the hands, but what will that lead to? And that's coming up.
It'll lead to
mate,
it'll lead to some snarky BTE skits that none of us will ever watch.
But like we'll probably say at the end, and sorry, Ben, I was more you're going to ask us at the end, is like, we all had a great time and all that, but are we interested in seeing what happens on TV for most of this stuff coming out of the pay-per-view? It's a strange one. Like,
did you care who won? Did anyone really? Did
no,
they make...
I thought the FTR would win, to be honest, but yeah, it weren't like a big like, ooh, yeah, it wasn't like that for me at all.
I feel like a dream match there either. Just down on the floor as well. It didn't have,
which I was surprised at, because I wouldn't expect. I did, like, you know, JP's obviously got strong thoughts on the books. I mostly agree. I maybe don't feel as strong as you, JP, but I do, you know, I do agree. But even me going in, I was like, people asked us on the day, I was like, there's no way this can be bad. This is going to be great, you know. And this is always one of the two matches, you know, we push back on ourselves on and go, maybe we're not excited about this show, but this is going to be great regardless. And it was good. You could even talk me into, like you said, Matty, with the end sequence, into maybe a 3.75, but I felt closer to 3.5 on it live in the building, and kind of felt that way coming out of it. And that's still a good match, but it's not the level like I expected, like, out of these lads there. It just wasn't there. I pushed back on the handshake thing. I think I didn't like House of Black, you know, handing the belts over to Acclaim later in the night. Like, you're supposed to be spooky goth guys while you're showing sportsmanship. Like, I would rather there be a bit of nous there. I'd rather, you know, them not end this with a hug. If you are going to do more matches in future, but I suppose the question is whether I want to see more matches in the future. I'm actually not sure coming out of this. But the Bucks just feel stuck in, last point on them, stuck in 2017, 2018. You know, they haven't really changed the look. They haven't changed the act. And they were known for, you know, for you know, freshening themselves up and being current. And that's why they, you know, they galvanized things to create All In 2018. They kind of just been in stasis since then, haven't they? And they're in desperate need of a fresh coat of paint. But as you said, Matty, we're probably going to get 4 more years of them now without that fresh coat of paint.
Yeah.
But again, I think most people seem to enjoy it more to the level of you're saying, Matty, and Will did as well. And I think for a lot of people, this was the second or best match of the weekend. And people love the referential spot. You in there saying you go 4.5 on it. So, you know, I'm not 100% sure that's representative. I think you're maybe closer, Matt, to the overall consensus.
Yeah, 4 stars definitely for me. Definitely.
And then Will mentions here about hoping for FTR Aussie Open. That would have been a better match, because at least Aussie Open, the enthusiasm would be there. And I think that's the thing that I'm not seeing from the Bucks, is actual enthusiasm and drive. It feels like they feel like they've made it, and they get good money and they're comfortable with that. But that doesn't make for entertaining wrestling. And if they could just get their fingers out their asses and just like grind.
Well, if this doesn't do it, I don't know what will. But that tag division, I genuinely don't. But we'll move on to other stuff going on the show, as to a match that I actually did end up, and I've seen again. I think I'm the other end of like consensus on this. The Stadium Stampede match. I think I almost liked this more at home than I did watching it on tape. But I still enjoyed it on tape as well. It wasn't, let's all be clear, it wasn't Stadium Stampede. It wasn't even Anarchy in the Arena, really, was it? I think as soon as the Blackpool Combat Club made their entrances with the, this was another Mania entrance, Matty, with the match in their Morrissey jackets. They were looking good, the lads.
Sunglasses. Yeah.
I think I might have called Santana and Ortiz even making some eye contact, so that was nice as well, you know.
Mike Santana.
Mike Santana. Mike is going forward, JB. Just Mike going forward. No Santana in sight.
He's a unit now, isn't he?
Oh, aye. Oh, aye.
Vibes of Offset and Quavo there. I won't go over that again, but like they clearly are not. If you just follow their Instagram or Twitter, they're not even like Santana won't retweet a tweet that says the word Ortiz in it. That's the level of where they are right now. But I thought they were good additions to the match. We didn't get a chance to talk about that. I thought they were very good. Nick, best friends, got an amazing reaction. You know, you had to have Orange Cassidy featured somewhere on this card. I was so happy to see Eddie Kingston get the reaction he got in this match. Like, you know, kind of showed again the counterpoint will be, well, Moxley and Kingston probably should have had their match here. You know, if you'd have been able to time things properly, maybe the G1 got in the way. Maybe that's not a valid excuse. Who knows? But I did think it was lovely to see Eddie Kingston get such a loud reaction from 80,000 people. Also, Pentagon was in the match. But yeah, Fun
At
is
times
the word.
changed, mate, didn't he?
What was that all about?
And
That
climbed the wrong way up a ladder.
Our
It is
section,
not
like,
shit
what's going on?
about
That is not
Penta
lore they have.
Sorrow.
That is not lore they have built up. That he has this alternate character in Red, or at least lore that anyone actually cares about.
Is he meant to be more like Arder or Supernatural or something when he's all in red?
No, he wears red, mate.
Is that also
He
it?
wears red. Yeah, he wears red.
Basically.
And Abrahantus gets his Dracula cape on, and there you go. You're set up. But yeah, I love the Sue spot. I was slow on the uptake on the Sue spot. I didn't realize. Like I was like, "What? Where's the car like coming hurtling into the venue?" I got a little bit worried, to be honest. I was like,
Really?
"What's going on?"
we were all chanting for Sue when it was.
When I heard that, everyone else got onto it before me. I was like, "Oh, I'm a fucking idiot now. I get what that is." Because we had actually seen outside the Wrestler Hotel Trenton Sue going for a walk, and she was doing like the mum thing. She was marveling about how lovely everything was. I was like, "Just walk a little bit further down that road, love, and get to Brent. You'll see how lovely it really is." But that was a fun spot as well. Maybe I shouldn't be saying fun match, JP, about a match with Eddie Kingston and Moxley in it, but this is why I think a battle royal would have been good on this show. People got to pop for a lot of different entrances. This is the positives of doing multi-mans. People got to see a lot of the characters that they like, and there were some fun, memorable spots in there. But maybe a popcorn match compared to what you could have got with the real substance with a Moxley on a show this big. But watching it back, I enjoyed it, and probably more than the tag match.
It did feel. I enjoyed it, and again enjoyed it probably because I was watching it there with a non-fan who's like, "What the fuck? This is crazy," and you kind of get into it in that way. I mean, it's just I was spending a lot of time watching this on the TV because while they were in the ring, it was people were stood up and trying to walk around everywhere from where they were brawling, but they were brawling on the other side to where I was. I was hoping they'd come out near us because we'd be able to fucking rush over there, and hopefully the security would be able to sit us all down again afterwards and just be able to stand up like it's your call. But it was fun for what it was, and it probably was it was needed, something like this at this stage. Now, don't get me wrong, they kind of overdid this was like the first of 3 matches which basically had no rules set to it on here, but it was fun and it was silly. There was a point where I thought, Eddie Kingston, is he going to do some mad dive like off the royal box onto the black fucking tarpaulin below?
I thought that, JP. I thought there'd be a spot coming.
I was terrified of that happening. I'm pretty sure Wheeler Yuta and Trent had a fight backstage that we just didn't see for like 10 minutes. And I think it came up very quickly on the TV as well. And I had a good laugh at Penta climbing up the wrong side of the ladder as well, and fucking that up. And then that.
They nailed it, though, to be fair to them. They managed to get up there and do it a second time.
But you're right in Abrahantes. That bloke just needs to just go. Like, he just brings it. He just makes him seem so much less cool. And, Moxley, he had the spot there with the skewers and everything else. And that did look like
I love that.
Yeah. Like
just for the fact when it exploded, you had the 3 or 4 still stuck in his head. It made for a better visual, JP. It couldn't have went any better.
Yeah.
if he obviously done it again. It went.
Oh, yeah.
I fucking love this match, boys. I'm honestly thinking could be match of the night for me. Like, I thought it was unbelievable. Someone I'm no best friends guy like yourself, Benno. But I thought Trent took a hell of a beating in this.
Oh my God,
he took some fucking.
They're always good in these types of matches, to be fair to them.
Rough ladder spots, even Chucky T there. Like me and Gareth were talking, he's wrestled on the smallest card, just him. I don't even care for just getting this moment.
Yeah,
see the awful waffle live, that move. I fucking love
my
that
God,
move.
yeah. See the awful waffle that I used to watch on Shikara tapes and think, what the fuck is that move? How's he not killing people? Seeing it for the 80,000 people, nuts in it, nuts.
I'm not an Orange Cassidy guy along with best friends, but I love the end. I love where he put the glove in the glass, going for the big Superman punch.
Kickboxer style.
Then with King and Moxley having their beat, spearing them through the board with the barbed wire. And him getting the pin on Claudio, and then just that visual of King with the one finger to Moxley was just so fucking good.
Brilliant.
And even
can't get that on the show images.
Yeah, it's even the end of and once again, I'm no best friends and an Orange Cassidy guy, but they're a proper unit them, and they stuck together, hence the name Best Friends and stuff. But I love that shot of them going out up the ramp at the end, and Cassidy leaning on them just to get him out because they'll always have his back and stuff. Honestly, I'm no big AEW guy, and as I say, Best Friends guy, but they deserve the moment, and I fucking love this match. Fucking loved it.
Yeah. I think it's the definition, JP, of a match I wouldn't have booked, but it worked. And what
It did work.
It worked. It absolutely worked.
And like, and Matty mentioned, like, the Eddie King, just at the end, the face he had on him.
How good was it, though, boys? Honestly, it was just.
I mean, my
just a shame he didn't come out with some petrol, didn't it? That's the one thing this was.
I was expecting fire. When he come out, I thought he'd have fire because it's an open stadium. I thought definitely we'll see flames here.
I'm wondering whether or not, now, I know that there'd be talk about Eddie facing Claudio for the Ring of Honor title at like All Out. I'd save that for Arthur Ashe and have that as like a big moment there in New York where like he wins a world title in inverted commas in there as well. And I think we're getting to Orange Cassidy Moxley, because I'm assuming Orange Cassidy will defend against Penta, and then we'll get him and Moxley, and that'll probably be the end of what's been a cracking run. And Orange Cassidy, he's fucking awesome. You can't like
MVP of AEW quietly just like continues to be most protected probably wrestler in the company. As well. Could have defended the belt. Like I enjoyed Steph asking Tony about that at the cut wrestling. The international title. Like I think might have defended that internationally. And Tony Khan was like, oh well, it was easier when Pac had it because he was based in England, so we could do international matches. I was like, well. So you didn't think past Pac having the belt? Like you just what happened when he was going to inevitably lose it? Like what is it then? Whatever. But anyway, great. And a nice scene as well. And this was one where some long-term roster members did get their due. So it was nice to see. From there into a match I think we're gonna have a lot less to say about the contents of. Shida, Saraya, Toni Storm, and Britt Baker. Another one where I think the entrances were probably the highlight. I enjoyed Toni Storm coming out to God Save the Queen. I don't know how that gimmick is working, but it's working. I love it. God bless her. It's she seemed to have actually landed on something, which wasn't something I would have said a few weeks ago when she first started doing it. Britt Baker was over. Everyone got to do the DMD with her. Shida, was fine out there as well. And I think the big entrance was Saraya with the family behind the JP. I had a good laugh at that. I mean, obviously there are very, it's a problematic booking, and you could say that about many of the people who were stood behind her. But you have got to laugh at the fucking the Knights are always gonna they're always gonna land on the fucking feet, aren't they? And I did. Yeah, when I saw fucking Ricky Knight Senior and Saraya Senior as well coming out behind her, and it felt like all the brothers, cousins, and uncles, but really it was Roy and Zach, wasn't it? It was Ricky Knight Jr. and the other one that no one remembers the name of. Good to see Ricky Knight Jr. on the big stage, and they were given an inch shape in. It felt like they took a mile. They got the big entrance.
Oh yeah.
They ran in at the end as well, but it felt like that was not planned whatsoever. Like half of them were in the ring, half of them weren't. Ricky was the good one. Ricky stayed outside. Like we went told we were allowed to get in the ring here. I'm just going to stay here. But that's unfortunately the Knights for it here.
I had vibes of Bret Hart and the family when he fought Vince in that terrible match at WrestleMania, and then all those. But I was like, fucking all these lot are involved.
PJ Knight is the name of the other one, apparently. There you go. Yeah.
Again, there's like. And I get the reasons why people would like, and people have good reasons to think like they do come across as the most carniest of families. What I would say about the match,
that family, remember when what was the Les Battersby and that came into Coronation Street? That's the fucking Knights, isn't it? Don't kill me, but that is what they are, like, for good and for bad. Like we've all seen the documentary, we've all seen the film. That's the type of family this is.
Yeah, Florence Pugh has a lot to answer for. But it is. I did think there was a match because it was quite short, like less than 9 minutes. This one, and
thankfully,
it didn't fuck about. It protected Saraya but again, we get into the weird idea of her being like. I mean, she was treated like a big babyface. I mean, coming out to "We Will Rock You" by Queen, which God knows.
Oh, I didn't mention that, did I? Fucking hell, yeah, you paid for Queen for her.
Like those few references, the Bucks costume was like
Eddie Murphy.
Oh yeah, that was Queen too. Yeah. Jericho's we'll get to in a bit. I would say that I was a little bit off on Saraya ended up being the babyface at the end of this, but I think if you were going to get there, it was a smart spot having Tony at a mum. And again, the family probably took more than they should have from this spot and made it about them, but it worked as a way to make Saraya the babyface then. And I think she was all over the posters for this for a reason. She was on This Morning for a reason. We don't have to like it. We don't even have to necessarily think she's good or a good person based on some of the people she chooses to hang about with, but she is over and she is seen as a star, and I think people wanted to cheer her and they got to cheer her, and it was a way to get there. So I'm probably less charitable on the content of the match, but I thought that element of it and her winning, I had no problem with at the end of the day.
I was just going to say one. Sorry, Matty, to jump in. I actually thought the ending. I was kind of fine with that finish as well of Britt Baker trying so hard to put the lockjaw in that she's ignoring what she can't see what's going on behind her, and she also can't release it to break up the pinfall from when Saraya pins Toni Storm. And at least you're thinking, okay, there's a few different directions come out of this. You put Mercedes Mone into the mix. Like, I thought we might get Jade Cargill appear at some stage, but we didn't get that. It's just that, I suppose, did you need to put the belt on Hikaru Shida in the first place? Would it have been more fun just leaving on Toni Storm as champion?
Yeah, weird that. I suppose it's justified her being in the match, but I'm probably giving them more credit for thinking this through than they deserve, really. That is the issue.
Guarantee they didn't think it through.
You know
it's
what?
Worst match in the show, though, Matt. 2.25 stars.
It probably, but there was a few good bits in there, like that spot when Paige had the submission and Britt Baker gave Toni Storm that stomp. I mean, she took that was a good flush right in the kipper, and I got a good reaction too. Yeah, like Ruby Soho flew in all that way just to take that, ran down the aisle, took the forearm, and then ran back.
Could have at least let her come out with Tony. There was a lot of it on the night. There's a lot like when we get to the Jericho match with Sammy Guevara being in his corner. It's like, oh, you can understand that. It's like, okay, at least to get her to go out in front of the crowd. Like, she was worse than Nick Wayne, in and out. It was just like, bye. See ya.
It was weird, but I did like some of the funny stuff where, and I did have a good time with it when she hit Saraya's mum, who took a great bump off the forearm. Like, just the stuff with that, like, and the comedy stuff where they were both trying to pin Britt Baker early on. Thought some of the little stuff was well done. So, it was what it was, and it was a short match, as you say. But I didn't think it was that offensive, to be honest. And but once again, it's another thing I'm going to say: is it all like hodgepodge for the night where you give Saraya the belt and she lose it soon because it was just that moment, and then the Outcasts, have you fucked them off, or are they gonna like quickly make up and just as a vacuum for one night? You know what I mean? So who knows going forward with that one? But yeah, it was okay.
Probably go 2.75 to 3. I'm probably a little bit low. I thought for the 9 minutes at least it did hang around.
All right, yeah.
2.25 for me. But
you sure you weren't getting your chicken and chips when this was happening, Benno?
I've watched it twice now, unfortunately.
Fair enough. You've watched it back.
Probably why I'm so low on it. We went then from there into, speaking of entrances, a couple of the best entrances of the night, I would say. Starting off with Swerve and Christian Cage. Christian's entrance was fun. That was good. But
Big Ben on the clock, really.
Yeah, instead of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That was a nice little talk. Christian belonged on this show. It was like, you know what?
Yeah.
If this had been the story from the start, it would have made some sense. And, if they were organized and we would have known 6 weeks ago AR Fox wasn't coming out, we wouldn't have to blow up one of the greatest angles they've ever done to mysteriously make AR Fox a babyface. No, that was pure. That was the worst of Russo booking that match. Even you wouldn't be able to defend AR Fox now being a babyface who's friends with I couldn't believe he went that. I know. That was the worst part. We haven't got time to cover the Go Home Dynamite. The worst part of that Go Home Dynamite was that. Like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, just undercut so many things. But he wasn't here, and it could have just been Christian all along because it made storyline sense with All Out next week. And thought Swerve's entrance here was like, before we get to the other big entrance, which obviously we need to talk about, Swerve. It wasn't even necessarily the rap. That was fine. Was what it was. But it was just him. Like, I think Prince Nana was great too. I loved that he had Jimmy Rave's robe on. That was a nice call for the sickos like me, but also a nice thing to pay tribute to Jimmy Rave on such a big stage as the old crown jewel of the embassy. But everything Swerve was doing, just the way he looks at the crowd, the way he was like taking it all in. I'm massively on the Swerve train in AEW. It's a shame there, no? Shame he always gets fucking beat, as he would again here. But he's fucking just a star. And I'll even forgive the Who's House thing. I know it's a bit babyface, but like 80,000 people went for that. I think I'd seen Robert say on Twitter in the lead into this, like, don't underestimate that Swerve will be a star in Wembley because he put the legwork in. You know, I know it's not the full 80,000 people, but he was over here doing indies at times, even when it wasn't fashionable. He was in Ireland a lot. Like, he's a name over here. You love him as well, Matt. You loved him before he went to WWE. And yeah, all that paid off, and it was a great thing to see him be this over. And yeah, like, that lad's a star.
He is. Carries himself so well. Let's just hope he gets pushed up the card and do something of value with him, Benno.
And this was a good spot, but yeah.
It was, but like, as you say, I know he didn't get pinned and he obviously got put in the coffin and protect him that sense, but he should be just used a lot more. He is so fucking good as well. I know some people are a bit down on his convoluted style in there as well, but I fucking love him. I just think he should be pushed. And yet this, you know, that entrance was, we were all having a great time in our section. Like, we were all going for it so much. DJ Who Kid, does he always like, come on, he's a name from my past, like, that I used to love with all the mixtapes and stuff. Used to love all that. So I was banging for it.
Him and Nana dancing as well. Like, and this is the point I stood up in the show. Like, I'd gone and stood up behind where one of the crane cams was, like, so I could just sort of stand there and watch it. So I had a lot more fun watching it.
Yeah, me main man Liam knows Who Kid was a legend. He was a legend at that game.
Sting's entrance though.
Oh man, like, if you're gonna pay for anything,
yeah, I lost me mind.
Seek and Destroy. Like, we all remember that when he used it in WCW. This was proper goosebumps, Matt. Like, this was like I say, I was up in the gods, kind of just looking down, and you can just see all of, like, the phones out. It's gone dark at this point as well, which you couldn't put Sting and Darby earlier in the night. They
no chance. It's
like Undertaker back in the day, and they had to be here. And they came out and just like, we had the little what you call it, the intro, the Jack the Ripper thing. The
it was hilarious. Sting in the top hat.
English.
I love that. I loved it.
Does he really want to be replicating Jack the Ripper?
I know. It's Yankstone, isn't it? Like, you know.
If they run Ellen's Road, is he going to turn up with a big beard, wearing a wedding suit, and being a trucker on the side as Peter Stingcliffe? That was where my mind immediately went to Peter, which says more about me, I think, than anything else.
But like, when Seek and Destroy hit, like you said, Matt, just chills. Like, this is a proper star. Punk felt like it earlier in the night. Here's another one. This is a mega star in Sting, or at least in this world. And yeah, I was just sat there, just soaking it in, just enjoying it. Like, that was one of the highlights of the night. This seeing Sting at this stage. Like, and by the way, when I did see him knocking around Wembley Park, looked amazing. Him and his son. He had like a blue Under Armour top on, like bright blue, tans. You know, people say he looks young because he's got the face paint. No, he looks good in real life too. He was lovely to everyone who stopped him. Anyone who wanted to picture with him, he was taking it. Lovely man. And yeah,
64.
Great to see him still knocking around and being willing to do this. Like, it's the coolest fucking thing.
Doesn't have to do it.
We're so lucky we got to see this, isn't it? Like, that's you feel a privilege.
I had my phone out ready for when I seen the little video, and I must have had a preconceived thing that this was going to. Because why would I? Because I'm not even a big Sting guy, but I do like him. But I must have knew. And then soon as that music, oh my god, I went ballistic, and I filmed all the entrance, got all the music. Yeah, fucking loved it so much, and yeah, just amazing, as you say. And I'm not even being big on Sting. He deserved that moment, you know, in front of that crowd. I know he's had his Mania moment, which didn't go well for him in the result and stuff, but this was like fitting. And I even when I got home watching the entrance, I was showing Steph, and she knows Sting, and I said, he's 64. And that's what you said, like, the face paint he will, even if he's 84, the face paint will still hide that. But
Steph says here in the chat, my Steph, he looked handsome. He did in real life. He looked like
fair play.
Good man. Good man.
He shouldn't be, you know, he shouldn't be doing it, should he? But it's just that drive he's got. He's 64, as I keep saying. And he's having the time of his life, and fair play to him. Fair play to him.
Yeah, there was a TNA chant, as you insist, in the chat.
Yeah, he was.
Was that you?
I said that. I said to the lads, when Christian and Sting were facing off, this is some TNA law. And then they started chanting it.
And I kept thinking of the Christian's running TNA deep cut that we did with Connor, King of the Mountain choice. It was just like, oh fucking hell, we've just seen this recently.
Another fun match, though. That's kind of what you could say. And I think, you know, as much as I'm like, oh, Swerve took the fall, quote unquote, you're right to point out, Matt. Yeah, he went in a coffin, and he sold it so well. Like, the whole thing, like, his hands kind of hanging out, and then his his dreads were hanging out at the end, weren't they?
It was like a rumble thing now, you know, when like someone didn't get through out the rumble technically. He hasn't lost this match technically because his hair's hanging out. I reckon he'll revisit that. I reckon he'll say that on the next TV that he's on, definitely.
I'm still laughing at Liam's comment about he had some look at some real estate in Kensington while he was here as well. Or probably looked around the Brent area and thought, is this going to be gentrified? Possibly. Depends, mate. He probably looked at Ules and wondered whether or not that's going to make a difference to property pricing around London. Good old Steve.
Oh, Steve. What a highlight. He was brilliant. So, the match. Good stuff,
Yeah. Good fun. I go 3.5 stars. I probably a small complaint that Swerve's dreads technically were holding the coffin open, but
I love that. You would say he double down through the table to the rug.
I was crying.
He didn't have to do that, did he?
It was like the first one obviously didn't go through, and then it was like literally an old man thought, I'll just die. He just jumped, didn't he, like an old fella? And just like, it was half a leg drop, half his back or whatever it was. It was fucking, I lost my mind, laughing my head off. Brilliant.
Yeah. Newman's right to point on the chat. Yeah, Darby bumping like a madman. I'm still gutted he didn't climb the Wembley arch, but maybe next time. Maybe now he's seen it. Maybe he'll think, maybe next year we could do something there.
There's bloody fireworks nearby. He'll fucking singe whatever's left of his hair, mate, if he's up there.
There we go. So that was a lot of fun into Jericho and Ospreay, and we you could see Fozzy getting set up during this one. So it was very clear this was coming up next. Jericho got his 80,000 sing along. The fans were singing more than he was, as Jesus played them out. I think that's a trick that he does in the live shows as well. But people were into it. I was just like, whatever, sing along if you want.
Wasn't you singing, Benno? No,
I was not, mate. I think that was when I was getting my hot dog. But that happened, and then Ospreay came out, and that's what I want to talk about before we get into this match. Sometimes I think as a podcaster, you've got to accept when you're wrong, and I think sometimes when you're a podcaster, you've got to do a victory lap when you're right. I think Dave Meltzer might have been the victory lap here, because I don't think any of us, if we're all honest, a few weeks ago, or a few months, not weeks ago actually, a few months ago, when we were talking, how often did we talk about does Wembley need a big British star? And how often did it be like, well, I think Meltzer's maybe over-egging the pudding on Ospreay. He's over to a point. We know who he is, and we, love his work. And, obviously he's over to a certain type of fan like us, the people who've seen him in New Japan and all of that. But Meltzer was going off on him being like, oh, he's going to be the next British Bulldog or whatever. And we laughed at him. We're like, there's no way 80,000 people aren't all gonna fully know who Ospreay is. It wasn't necessary. It was the best of a bad bunch. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't unacceptable to put him in this spot, especially if it was the Kenny match. But it's fair to say we all had some doubts. And then he came out, and 80,000 people were singing the Will Ospreay song. 80,000 people were cheering for him like he was the biggest babyface this country has ever produced. Like, it wasn't just a pocket of hardcore fans. I think Forbidden Door obviously is a massive help in that. Even if you, and I'm sure there's loads of people this describes to this crowd who only watch AEW. Like, of course they've been exposed to Ospreay. He's been on AEW TV. They've seen him have the match of the year potentially with Kenny Omega, and maybe that wasn't emphasized enough by people because he came out here and it was like, he got one of the top 3 pops of the night. I would think it was unbelievable, JP. It was just on a level where I expected him to be over, but to be this over, Dave was right. Maybe Joey Tribbiani is the biggest star in the country as well. Maybe, Matt LeBlanc should be on the next All In based on Dave's record here. He was right. The podcast was wrong, JP.
He was. And obviously at Rev Pro the night before, we kind of thought, is that the limit of him? Everyone knew him because of him being in Rev Pro. So he got a massive ovation there, but that wasn't a surprise. It was the amount of people, again, doing United Empire signs. You saw the amount of United Empire shirts around the place as well. Everyone singing along. He felt like a massive fucking star. And you couldn't get away from it. Regardless of thoughts on whatever people think of him as a person and everything else, you can't deny that he is over. And he's over in a big way.
Talent wins out. For better or worse, it has. Yeah. It has, and people recognise, especially the type of fan who's going to plug down 200 quid to go see AEW at Wembley Stadium. They know that he's fucking unbelievably good, and I suppose it's not as niche as we all thought. Did it surprise you, Matt, that he got that level of a reaction?
Yeah, it did, and obviously I was with Gary, Crewy, and Gareth, and they were all the same. could not believe the whole entire stadium went bananas. Like JP said, the night before, he got an unbelievable reception all throughout his match and angle afterwards and stuff like that.
And we will get to that in hour 4. Don't worry, we are going to talk
we will. But once again, I genuinely couldn't believe it. And it was fair play to him for getting that. And amazing.
Yeah, he looked $1 million bucks as well. And again, the reason is he's someone who's over on the strength of his in-ring work. Maybe not so much as promos, or maybe his promos. I don't know. I think they're better than some people say, but I understand why
they'll land in America though, because that was my big thing. Benno saying, even watching that contract signing, will he be able to do weekly television if he does sign in January? And as the guys were explaining, it's been like to that American audience as well. That's going to come across, isn't it? Like he's the English fucking, bruv and all that kind of thing.
I thought that worked on Dynamite. I really did.
Maybe it will. Yeah, maybe it will. Yeah.
The only odd thing was, I say how over he was. I mean, he was clearly the babyface. Despite the fact Don Callis was
I was going to say, he was literally, he snuck out, didn't he? He snuck out.
That's where the problems lay with me, and it's very, very confused. Like in terms of the babyface heel dynamic, because they've been going for Jericho as a face in the build up to this. He was booed out of the building on Rev Pro when he came out there. And here, once Judas was over, he was very much the heel. And I have to say, as a match, like it was fine. It was Ospreay. It wasn't quite Ospreay trying to carry Vader by doing all of the match by himself, but we weren't that far away from it, were we? It still feels like he was the one who's having to kind of like drag out these kind of performances out of him. It just feels like it's an inevitability that he signs as soon as his New Japan contract is up. And really, at this stage of his career, that's what he should be doing. If he wants to think about it for the money and the long-term kind of benefits, it makes sense for him to do that. So, he went over the Sammy Guevara stuff afterwards.
He struggled. I think that Jericho definitely struggled to keep up. That's the one thing I'd say with the match. Like he obviously was trying to have like the big New Japan main event type match and do the whole like. It felt a little bit half like what would be a mid 2000s work rate match, like an Angle Benoit type thing, where we're stealing each other's moves and we're doing all that. And it, when he tried to steal Ospreay's moves, it didn't go very well. Was landed on his own head, didn't he? When he tried to do the Oscutter and was out of position a couple of times for some big stuff. But this was pretty much the match was mostly Jericho stationary and Ospreay working circles around him, and some of it landed and some of it not. But it was a good match. It did work out in the end again. Would I rather have seen Ospreay or Omega? Yes, especially now knowing for certain, as Will says, maybe calling to question everything that we understood. I would still argue strongly. I think the Forbidden Door and the exposure on AEW telly was maybe something we weren't considering with how big an Ospreay was going to be in this setting. But it did make me think, fuck, imagine we had Ospreay and Omega at the end of this show. It would have been even better than we thought it would be. And obviously, Jericho was going to be a notch below this as a match, but I did still think it was good. I go 3.75 on it. Don't know about you, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, because
it was mostly Ospreay.
I jinxed this match because for the first 5 or 6 minutes, I turned to the lads and went, you know what? Everything's gone perfect so far. Everything's smooth. Jericho's knowing his role. He's letting Ospreay do, even in busting out the Hurricanrana. That's still stuff he can do. That looks like he's tying in with like the high flying and the match they're going for. But as soon as I said that to the lads, you had them botches you were going on about, or them not in position, and I jinxed it. Because I thought it was going really well, and it still ended up a good match. And I'd probably go 3.75, but I'm holding myself responsible for that jinx there, like so. Yeah,
you would say a good point. Oh, sorry, 3.5 for you, JP. Yeah. I'm like Ewan says here, if Ospreay isn't signing, what AEW doing putting him in that position? I think the key is he is signing. He's got to be based on that Dynamite.
He doesn't want to live in America, does he? So if you're going to do a pack where he flies in every week, that's what he says he won't. That's why he won't sign for WWE. He said he doesn't want to live in America or based there.
He's doing a pack, and then he sits at catering for weeks at a time, doesn't he? So if they're willing to pay for that and for Kip Sabian to come back and forth, then I don't buy that as a strong enough reason. He doesn't sign with AEW.
But you know, Benno, he's doing Bound for Glory in October.
I heard on the pre-show,
random.
Shouldn't be.
Random.
Shouldn't be. Should be bigger than that.
Should be protected. That's what
Shouldn't be work in progress, but he does that too, doesn't he?
He doesn't protect his star quality. Maybe even after this Wembley, he should realise that he's such a fucking big star. But he's the type of guy that'll just go and keep wrestling no matter the crowd, doesn't he? So we'll hats off to in that regard, like.
But definitely, he was the highlight of this. So yeah, that was that. We then had Nigel McGuinness doing the announcement of the 81035.
You should have cheered him for that, Benno.
Of course it was, mate. I was thinking, think of the YouTube videos I can make out of this. Apart from the build is crap. Numbers videos did really well for us in the build up to All In, and we were all very impressed. And yeah, I was surprised. Quick note on that. I was surprised they went with the paid number, but I guess we don't know, ushers and ticket takers and comps and all that, whatever the total in the building is. I guess we'll get that in the coming days. But I didn't realize at first. I was like, oh, that's a bit lower than I thought. And then when it was clarified by Nigel and Ring, it was actually paid. That made more sense. It's 81,035 paid. So there'll be more on that in the days to come. I'm sure me and JP will cover it on the weekend show as we get more detail out of that. And then we went into the match I'd completely forgot was on the card when the entrances were made. House of Black again, big entrances. Obviously having the tribute to Bray Wyatt, which was a nice touch. I would have thought they'd go a bit further, maybe do the play the whole world or whatever. It's not copywritten, is it? But it was a nice little subtle touch that I didn't catch in the building, but obviously rewatching on tape, you saw the Latin clear there in HD, and then not daddy ass, badass Billy Gunn, like there's a fucking difference.
What year?
And the Acclaim, that was as the hook for this match. That made no sense at all. But what made all the sense in the world was putting them in the position. You couldn't have ran this show at Wembley and not given those 80 to 90,000 people the chance to cheer for the Acclaimed, because they are that DX equivalent attitude era act in this company. Everyone goes mad for the rap. Everyone goes mad for the catchphrases. We all get to do, the whole scissor thing at the end. I had strangers trying to scissor with me. I
was scissoring everyone around me, but the couple in front of
there was a lot of that. But they had to do that. They did. And, it was a good way to get to that point. You just couldn't have had Wembley welcome on it. So good for them.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't have had that.
I'm just going to check what that bang was. I'll be back.
Yeah,
that your router?
The neighbours breaking in again. It made complete. You had to have them on there, and it's about how over they are. And the clue was when going into the stadium was the amount of Sesame t-shirts I saw and Sesame sort of signs as well. Which, speaking about the signs, there were a couple of weird ones. Just one so I saw one that said "for naan." I don't know what that means. Something with naan bread. I'm not quite sure. I did see Bluey Combat Club, which then relates back to a lot of what we were talking about on All In It as well, where anything of the children's show Bluey that's there is, I'm fucking down for all of the way. This I thought was a match, did exactly what it needed to do, which if you're thinking it was the match, the buffer to the main event, the crowd got to pop. It was less than 10 minutes. They went over. If you're having a trios belt around the place and you're not going to be pushing the Acclaimed as a tag team, fine. Because I think they have enough personality to do it. Whereas we talk about the Bucks can't do it. I think the trios title actively kind of hurt them. Whereas I think for this just feels like if we are leading to, and you never know with AEW, so lead to a Billy Gunn retirement and the rest of it where they lose those trios belts. But we've been saying about Sting for about the last 15 years. He'd end up doing it. So I'm not entirely convinced. But it worked. It worked for what it was. Yeah. And they won and they, absolutely. Oh, 4-9 is a reference to Peep Show. I don't know what that reference is. I might well have just missed out on. I'm trying to think of what that was, but it's a wacky one to go with.
Come on, JP. 4-9, Jeremy. Do you not remember that?
Mate, I feel like I haven't slept for 3 days. So, in fairness, I'm not going to pick up on all of this.
You go to an Indian and Jeremy orders 4 nans. He's like, 4 nans, Jerry. That's mad.
This is like when Alan Partridge signs turned up at wrestling and somebody had Cook Past Partridge being held amongst 30 people. But with this, I thought it was when they got we spoke about earlier on having the Bucks FTR match a bit too early. This was the perfect position for this one. It's just afterwards, where do they go with House of Black? Hopefully not as a trios. Malachi Black as a singles, and Brody King and Buddy Murphy as a tag team would be sort of the sense.
Shot you me. If I tell you that I saw them 3 knocking around Wembley Park as a stable, just walking around together.
Did you?
Tommy Bellend had House of Black stickers on his backpack. Of course he did.
Mate, keep up, Benno. Tommy Bollocks. That's what he is.
Tommy Bollocks, that's his name now. Yeah, fucking hell. But yeah, full match, got the Acclaimed on the card.
Yeah. they're one of the most organically over acts they've done AEW for me. Like, they always should be on every TV they can, every pay-per-view. The fans just love them, don't they? And a couple of notes on this one. JP, was you happy about Caster's rap getting Prince Andrew in there?
Oh, mate, he completely killed the second line about Meghan Markle.
Yeah, no one got onto that until I watched the entrance back, because everyone was still
I'll
going,
never get the hatred for her. I don't know what war crime Meghan Markle is guilty of, but like, it seems to have passed me by. The Prince Andrew reference was good, and also the reference to, is it Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione in there as well, like for House of Black. I thought that was good fun.
Do you know what was weird though, boys? I don't know, Ben, if it come across on telly, because like all day Crewy was slagging off the House of Black, obviously, and especially the gimmick and entrance. And then all of a sudden, our section before the match started, we got given like a banner you would at a football ground where like you pass it back like a mosaic in the crowd. Did that come across on telly?
I don't remember seeing that at all. No.
Creepy was underneath holding it. Like it covered about like 400 people. It was that big, and we're thinking, oh, this is going to come across on telly. Well,
I don't recall seeing it when I watched back.
Yeah, it was more pointless. It was honestly about 400 people were under this like sheet, and we were passing it back, and that was dead weird. It was just.
I'd hate that. I'd get the claustrophobic. I'd cry.
Yeah. Was that of the 3 members of House of Black, or just Malachi Black, or? Just a big black banner, was it?
We don't know what it said because we're underneath it. We don't, because then I looked behind then, and there was like banners hanging over. Like,
you gotta hope it was not problematic. Like,
the security was like full on security come in and give us it. It wasn't like a fan brought it in. The actual production team come by us and said, "Hold this up when they come out."
Anyone saw it? Let us know. Maybe it was something for Bray. Maybe I don't know, because they didn't do a 10-0 salute, did they? Which was odd. But I mean, they had that nice little spot. But yeah, I know. Oh, well, there we go. So, yeah, it was a perfect semi-main event anyway. Good palate cleanser, allow people to nip the bogs and whatever they needed to do to get ready for the main event as we circle back round. Ewan says here, it said House of Black and it looked like a bed sheet. There you go. That's what it was.
Weird.
Big bed sheet. But yeah, we circle back round to the main event as MJF and Adam Cole made their second lot of entrance.
I'm very intrigued here, Benno, to what we all think of this. I'm very intrigued.
I think I know. I mean, I don't feel as you've got to say it worked for the crowd. It did. Like this, that's just the type of crowd this was. I was in a section, like say, behind a gobshite with a Vuvuzela and another bloke who kept trying to sing the LA Night Yeah thing like over and over again. Like there was a lot of that. A lot of that. Call and repeat, yeah. And I think that type of fan that I'm kind of painting a picture of is the type of fan who's going to love this MJ and Cole lore. Like, they had the big entrances. That was cool. We had MJF doing, like, the, he got to do his NXT match that he's always wanted to do. Like, he could have come across more of a fanboy of the Adam Cole / more Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, like, melodramatic main event. It was one of those, wasn't it? It was a match built around the fact that two lads didn't want to hurt each other, is where the problem comes for me. But when you talk about what worked with it, it did work. Like, it did work as far as, like, people, invested in, like, those little spots, or the spots with, like, the chair where neither of them, they were both trying to do the Eddie thing, or they didn't want to, like, tombstone each other through the table, and then, ignore the believability of Adam Cole wanting to count out victory. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. A lot of like little spots like that, but there was a lot of those bloodline-esque stop the match and do some drama spots in this one. That is, obviously done gangbusters for WWE and is the hottest thing AEW you've got in the company right now. It's just not for me. I did feel underwhelmed by this being on. I think I'd have been more forgiving of this if this was the semi-main event and there was some, doesn't even have to be for the title, some blood feud on top, or some match that's been built up for 6 months that's being paid off Taz Sabu style, or maybe it is the world. There is MJF for whatever reason doesn't have the world title here, and there is another one. That's when you can more get away with this. For me. But was it two of the most over wrestlers on the card? Yes. Did it get some of the loudest responses? Also, yes. I can pick holes in the logic, but I can't be a neutral podcaster, and I have my own opinions, obviously, but pretend it didn't work. I can't do that. It did. And most of the people there, JP, and I'm guessing you might be with me, had a cracking time. I will say I enjoyed it more in the building than I did watching it back. Watching it back, it was pretty painful. If I'd have been watching on TV, I'd have been tweeting up a storm, fuming about it. In the building, it was like, oh well, people are having a good time.
And I'm with you 100% on that, because I think I've always said since the beginning of this, I wasn't mad on this being like the main event of the biggest paid attended show in wrestling history, but it worked. And the people around me fucking loved it. They bought absolutely into it. They love MJF. They absolutely fucking loved him. Like, just even the singing along to his song. And you mentioned about the entrance as well. Like, very Triple H at Mania, wasn't it? Like,
oh, yeah. He loved that. He loved that entrance.
Which was, I thought, at least that because they'd had those kind of big entrances for both of them, at least made it feel different from the tag team match they'd had earlier in there. It's just the storyline stuff. It felt so dragged out, didn't it? And also to be noticed, there's no intermission during this. So we're just going from like match to match to match. We're not even having like extended kind of like promo segments and the rest of it. So probably at this stage, I started to personally feel I was quite knackered at this stage. It's not for me. There's stuff that I'll find weird that the Kingdom and Roderick Strong are involved in this.
There was no development either, was there? It was like, I think they deserve credit for going with a hot hand and realizing this was over. And if there was going to be a turn happening on the pre-show, not doing that. And if there was going to be a turn happening here, not doing that. Because nothing actually happened in the end. Like, we didn't get Cole joining up with the Kingdom and that being the reason the Kingdom, Matt Taven, MSG headliner, now Wembley headliner.
It's good to see that, if I'm being honest with you.
but there still wasn't a payoff, was there? It was still, we're still very early in the story, I suppose, because it's story, capital letters, because it's working. We didn't even get that development, did we? It was just, they're still friends at the end of it. Like, MJF won. Not that I think Cole should have won, don't get me wrong, but like, I thought we'd get more development. I thought we'd get more of something, but instead it was just, I mean, maybe this is good. 80,000 people having a good time. MJF and Adam Cole among them.
Dare I say, though, are we in the bottom of the third with this story going
don't you do that.
No, but I'm saying what JP was saying earlier on. It's like, I don't know if they've seen it working on WWE, but they've obviously leaned into like going with the full-on story. And I'm using that term not like the way we use it. That's what it is, isn't it? To telling that story, and yet you can pick logic holes in some of the spots in the match. But I thought some of the spots in the match were really good, though. You're saying that they didn't want to hurt each other. Adam Cole was the one, like that brainbuster on the steps. I mean, I was fucking insane. That spot was insane. Then he's the one who hit the tombstone on MJF. So obviously they were leaning into the fact of Adam Cole would do anything to win this belt. But when it come to firing that last shot, JP, with the belt, he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it, could he? So I did lap it up. Like the guys next to me weren't liking it at all. Really crewy at one point, Benno, when they were doing the toss of the chair spot to each other, he's fucking screaming, "Is this a fucking Laurel and Hardy sketch or is it a wrestling match?" And I'm like, I'm having a great time though, and it's one of the only stories I like in AEW. So, it is probably made for someone like me who loves all the, the backstage stuff.
Was that you starting the chance, was it? I knew it was.
No, even I was like, no, it's not the right event for this, lads. Walking down, trying to walk down Wembley way. I didn't like all that. But like, it is made for a fan like me. And it's some of the backstage stuff, I think is a bit too cheesy with like what I seen last week was over the top. But as you say, though, and I'm not even an AEW guy, like, the fans love this shit, Benno. They fucking, like, you can't underestimate that. You can't, like, really underestimate how much they're into this stuff. So, obviously, they're going to lean into it. And you're saying that there's no end game there.
I'm sure there's an end game. Like,
yeah, but on the night, I thought you said on the night.
Oh, yeah. There was no developments, is more what I said. It wasn't like we didn't get to another stage of the story, did we? Really?
This is another podcast here.
I know we're still spinning, and you're defending it again. Here we are. I just don't feel as strongly about this one.
Yeah, this feels unerringly familiar for me, sat in there watching.
Well, it is, JP. I've seen it. Like, it's different strokes for different folks. It's preference. It's all that, isn't it? And like as you say, for like maybe hardcore guys like yourselves and stuff like that, or old school fans, or whatever we want to paint it as. This new audience, Benno, and this fan base, they do. You can't underestimate, though. I keep saying this, how much they're into this. It's mental.
Bizarre. And they're willing to forgive the stuff like Ewan and Liam are rightly putting on the chat that
Yeah.
Cole asking for 5 more minutes when hang on. Like, he didn't ask. I mean, it gave MJF the line.
MJF did cover that, to be fair, because we were all like that, even Clue. Like, you can't buy 5 more minutes.
Why is he saying it? You know,
well, that's it. Not everyone. Yeah. It's
a lot of Ring of Honor lore here at the end is what we have, don't we?
Oh yeah,
the Ring of Honor tag champs.
Yeah, not my Ring of Honor. Well, I mean, again, let's not fall down the trap of doing too much speculation for all that. Again, people might have listened to this and might know the answer. Maybe they go into the match with the Kingdom or whatever. But it was just a strange visual to see. I mean, Roderick Strong sprinting out did make me laugh. When he thought, yeah. But yeah, Taven and Bennett up on the stage, just bizarre. Because that was another thing I'd seen knocking around Wembley Park. Like a bus arrived and I just saw like a Matt Taven shaped silhouette in there. And I questioned every life decision I'd gotten to that had made me recognize a Matt Taven silhouette on the back of a bus. I knew they were in the country. I knew they were there. But yeah, Stadium Wrestling, Ewan says there, yeah, telling the story so everyone in the building knows what's going on. It's kind of what it was. And I bought the double pin, absolutely. I kind of laughed out loud. Oh my God, is this the finish of the biggest show of all time? To be fair, they got me there.
It was genius.
Maybe I'd more go with it was so stupid it was believable, but yeah, genius. Yeah.
No,
I don't know how I would even rate it. I would even rate it. What? I'd go 3.25. Like,
yeah, I would.
I'm going 4 on it. Like, definitely.
I'd go 3.2 for the simple reason of I actually loved the half-an-hour match they had before. I thought that was a really good TV match. And
when they wanted to win and hurt each other, remember that?
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't think it makes no sense. Like, it's not amateur wrestling where, like, I could believe that in amateur wrestling, you want to pin the guy, but you don't actually want to hurt him. You know, when you're doing jiu-jitsu, you don't necessarily want to break their arm. You want to get them into a position where they'll tap. In wrestling, we hit each other with steel chairs and super kick each other in the head and pile drive each other. Like, the game is to hurt someone. Like,
we rake their eyes.
It doesn't make any sense.
Do like, finger pokes to their eyes.
This would hurt them too much. No, you'd win the match. And with wrestling logic, you'd be fine in 10 minutes. They're always fine in 10 minutes. Like, doesn't matter if you tombstone them through a fucking table.
Best friends, though, Benno.
NXT is what they are.
Yeah, no.
Black and gold. MJF getting to live his dream of being a main eventer in that scene.
Can I mention one spot, though, which I was crying. It was so funny. The Panama Sunrise to Bricey. Oh my God, the silly everyone like they would even like the guy
like John Pollock said. I've lost track of the amount of times I've accidentally hit a Canadian destroyer on someone. You know what I mean? It can happen, can't it? You're walking down the street, someone bends over.
Oh, it was hilarious. Come on, it was funny as fuck. That come on.
Oh fucking hell! And that's how we ended the biggest wrestling show of all time, JP.
Yeah.
I mean, what did we make of it overall? We did a lot of talk going in.
Yeah.
We hated the build. We hated the selection of what they were building, specifically the multi-bands. We didn't think they did a great job of giving everything stakes. But as we always said, the lead up, were we going to have a good time in the night? We were. Did we feel like we were part of something? We did. Even more so than even I kind of predicted. Like, it was special being there. Like, special being there amongst that many people. Special the idea that AEW could even do this, not be WWE and draw 80 to 90,000 people to a stadium. That there's that many AEW fans in this country in general kind of makes my head spin. You know what I mean? Obviously, there has to be more based on the ITV numbers, but like just to see it in real life was kind of a pinch me moment. And I got to be there for a live stadium show. And I've been to a WrestleMania, but it was before they were doing stadiums, and I might never get to a stadium WrestleMania. I did, for all the criticism we give the build, that I think you said it, Matthew, does stand to this day. What they did give us, what they did deliver, was a big stadium show that like felt every bit of that, was produced very well. And shock of shocks, as we always talk about when we're critical about AEW, JP, the best wrestlers in the world went out there and for the most part had very good matches. Maybe there wasn't a standout 5-star match there for my tastes, but there was lots of very good stuff up and down the card, and everyone delivered.
I think they did, and I think they were inspired to deliver by the crowd. I think it's that virtuous circle effect.
It was a good show, made a great show, I think.
Yeah, it was. And I would go with it. And I think you do you can detach the quality of the show and the wrestling for it. And obviously, they made the announcement afterwards. They're coming back on Sunday, August 25th, 2024. The big thing I'd say is if they want to do these numbers again, you can't be fucking winging it 2 weeks in advance. You cannot. Because there's a lot of people who have made, like, because this is the first time, it's special.
Yeah.
It's less special second time around. So you're going to have actual stuff there for you to build for. And let's face it, none of us have a clue what AEW is even going to look like in a year's time, because there's so many moving pieces and there's so much drama backstage that it's hard to tell what position they're going to be in as a company. But the one thing they can't do is you can't take this goodwill for granted. And I think that's what I hope is the thing that kind of came through, is there are a lot of fans, and you mentioned like the UK, really Europe as well, because there are a lot of people from in and around like continental Europe, Australia, even a few lads from the US, or RJ City speak to some people in the pre-show from Phoenix, for God's sakes. But they can't get away with it. The stuff they did well in terms of the spectacle, in terms of making it feel like a big, proper event on that WWE level without it looking exactly like WWE. They did that very, very well. But again, they've got to have a plan in place for this. And I'm sure most of the wrestlers who say weren't on the card, now Sami Guevara saying, I want to be on this card next year, all of them should be busting a gut to be on there and to have almost force the hand of Tony Khan saying, actually, we need, if we could deliver something properly spectacular and make sure it's seen by the most amount of people possible, not just Fight TV. Like, make sure it's seen on ITV for get those kind of
it's going to be a
things in
replay,
place.
isn't it, on Thursday? This now, I think we found that out in the well, not live, obviously.
Okay.
That's the difference, isn't it? It is going to be on ITV, but yeah, I
Could
don't
be
know.
on BT Sports or TNT Sports at that time, possibly.
Could be. The world could be completely different in here, couldn't it? As you say. I mean, like I said, I had one of the best weekends of my life because of this show. Like, absolutely the case. From our live show to Rev Pro, which we're going to talk about in a minute, to all of the other stuff, all existed because this show existed. I think even the wrestlers backstage would probably tell you there's definitely some grumbling to be had about the way the card came together and some of the decisions that were made or not made that you could absolutely rectify next time. I think play devil's advocate, like, you know, they delivered on the night. I think a good number of people there, myself included, when they announced that date, were like, maybe I'll have a little look on booking.com and see what the hotels are saying, you know, this time next year. I love the fact that they want to make that a tradition. I think that's, you know, we shouldn't take that for granted. As a British audience, we're going to have our own big AEW show once a year now. That is actually going to be a thing. You know, it isn't going to be a case of like with WWE, you're probably only going to get to a WrestleMania if you go, you know, to America and you make that trip. We are nailed on now to get this every year. Now, can they treat it like a WrestleMania? Can subsequent ones feel like a WrestleMania like this one did through being the virtue of the first? That is a question. I think regardless of anything, there'll be diminishing returns. I think I would guess, and I do take this with it, but just also guess we're talking less. You know, we're probably talking, maybe we're talking 60 to 70,000 instead of 80 plus. Or then again, when they announced this, I was the low man going, I don't know if they'll be able to fill it to 80, 90,000, you know, to a extreme degree. I didn't think that was going to happen. And it did. So I wouldn't doubt them either. I mean, what's your read on it, Matt? Like, you, as a non-AEW fan, you know, spend £200 on your ticket. Would you come again? Would you come every year? You know, if they were doing this once a year, like WWE have never done this. WWE might come back. WWE probably will, more likely than not, come back now that AEW are clearly, as Tony Khan said in the presser, trying to become the UK's number one company. In Tony Khan's words, they are the UK's number one company. That, hard to argue when they drew this many people. WWE are going to have an answer to that, but yeah, does it draw somebody like you? You know, the idea of coming back and doing it all over again next year.
Yeah, but that's like someone said there in the chat, Ewan, is it? Like, it's like our version of Mania weekend. So obviously, if all you guys and like Gareth and Gary and Crewy are going, I'm no pun intended, I'm all in for it. You know what I mean? I'm up for it.
It's WrestleMania weekend. We have our
own.
That's
what it is. That's what it is. So that's why I'd obviously go. And I agree what JP said. They'd have to announce a big main event weeks out, JP, and get a proper build next time, of course. But like you just said again, they nailed the scope. Everyone come across like a star. I think most of like 90% of the roster come across like a gigantic star because of this. And yeah, I'd be all up for it. Definitely, Benno. Definitely.
It's also going to be much bigger in scope because this time next year, they'll be running Dynamite and Collision and Rampage beforehand and Ring of Honor. I think we'll have a very different look to the weekend. I think we'll have like a whole series of shows.
Do the tapings the week before in arenas and stuff.
I think they might be here for even a couple of weeks beforehand. And there's a danger in that of kind of overexposing it. But because they hadn't done any TV beforehand, this was the first time you got to see AEW in the UK. You had to be at Wembley in order to do it. It's whether or not, what do they learn the proper lessons from this? And the problem with AEW is, and as we've spoken about quite a few times, is they don't often learn these lessons. And there's things where they rely on good wrestlers doing great wrestling in order to bail them out of it. And I think if they want to grow and they want to be a substantial presence in the UK and kind of enter into the popular kind of lexicon of British wrestling fans, so they speak about two companies and not just WWE, and there's other indie stuff on the side, they're going to have to actually have their ducks in a row with it, which again, they're an impossible company to predict because there's so much going on there behind the scenes that it needs a level of organization next time round. And they've had the goodwill this time round and they've generally delivered, I think, on a fun experience. But next time round, people might just be thinking, do you know what? I might just go on holiday.
Yeah, that's a good point. Bank holiday weekend as well every year, and it's going to be
tough sell. It's a lot of money.
It is.
I think if you're going to play devil's advocate, though, like as much as we were critical, if I titled this YouTube video "Were We Right" or "Were We Wrong," I'm going to say no. Well, we were. I think we were right in every bit of criticism of the build, and anyone who saw, where Omega and Moxley and that were on the card, I think would. You're just being stubborn if you don't agree. Maybe people think we're stubborn, but like I say, we always went in saying we knew they were going to deliver as far as in ring, and we knew it was going to be a spectacle because unlike a lot of the people commenting on this, we knew what Wembley was, and we knew what it meant to people, and we knew what it was going to look like when it happened. And they delivered on all those things. But you could play devil's advocate and say, as Will says here in the chat, as much as we think they dogged the bill to this one. The positive of that is, well, next time, you could save up Ospreay Omega. You could save it for then. You could, have your big, whether it's that or something else, your big Omega singles match. You could have your big Moxley singles match. You could have Danielson there. You could have Jamie Hayter there. You could have Hangman Page in a more prominent position. Like, you could get your ducks in a row and deliver now that they've come in and this show was going to be this show regardless of anything. I doubt it was the logic, but you could make that work for you, couldn't it? This show was always going to, it drew this number without the card being announced. You can't really credit Cole and MJF or whoever will get credit in future for it. AEW drew this crowd. 70,000 of the 80,000 tickets were already sold before we bloody knew any matches. We knew it was going to be a great atmosphere. We knew it was going to be a great night and a great monumental weekend. Those things were a given. You could make the pessimistic argument that, well, yeah, there you go. That was going to happen regardless. So now that they didn't put much effort in, they could put the effort in next time, and they could still do comparable numbers. Like, it would be a disaster to do 60,000, to do 70,000. It wouldn't be a disaster if they don't break the record. There's an argument to be made there, JP.
That's got to be the aim, though, hasn't it? Sorry to butt in there. That's got to be the aim, JP, to match it at least,
I think the other story that's really interesting is the way they're kind of almost block booking Wembley and like kind of taking that away from WWE, which will rankle them because there is no other stadiums.
Yeah.
Like
we were talking about that.
In the UK, they can't. There isn't. I mean, Jesus Christ, how many other stadiums are bigger than that in Europe for football? Like,
there's nowhere bigger.
Bernabeu.
Yeah.
Mate, I have a policy. I don't give that club any money. If they're running Tottenham, I ain't going. That club doesn't get a penny of my money. And it will be that way until I die.
Fair play.
Oh, well, unfortunately for the wrestlers, they did end up getting stuck in the country as well, didn't they? That was the other side note of this funny weekend. They got home yet? Hopefully, they'll be dreading next year if it goes in it like this. A lot of the Irish, unfortunately, got stuck as well, didn't they? At Heathrow and at other airports with everything getting grounded the day after. I think everyone's either on their way home now or at least at home. So let's hope that doesn't happen if it happens again next year. But yeah, one of the greatest weekends of our lives, and it wasn't just because of All In. We've also got to talk about the Rev Pro show from the night before. Timestamps will be your friend there, folks, as we will be running a bit long tonight. How long we will see. But yeah, we were also at Rev Pro's 11-year anniversary show the night before, which I would say from an in-ring point of view, I think it had at least one, maybe two of the better matches of the weekend, maybe the best match of the weekend from an in-ring point of view. But yeah, finally got to go to the Copperbox. Finally got to a sat between you and Rev Pro JP. So there you go. That was like being back in the day in the stands there to watch some of this one as well. But yeah, we talked about the weekend itself, and obviously what a great area it was knocking around there before the Copperbox show. But yeah, Copperbox itself, everything you said it was, JP, incredible venue. Walked in there, probably had the same reaction as me, Matty. What a brilliant place to stage some wrestling.
Yeah, just to
use that great seats. Use that brilliant seats for this.
We were just on the first row of the balcony there. Yeah, it was fucking just amazing venue. Really was.
You were like above like the entrance, weren't you? Behind it, like Garrett had some great photos of like Shingo coming out and Ishii coming out.
Oh, he was made up with that picture. He was all weekend. He was loving the fact he got that shot of his iPhone. He was proper proud of that. And we could see the wrestlers coming out, who was coming out before, like because we could see.
Oh yeah, I saw the picture like Shibata in the back.
Yeah. Boss, great venue.
It's unbelievable. It's a thing that kind of almost makes me sad that we don't have enough venues like that up and down the land. Like really, these kind of venues that could do sort of, let's say, up to 6,000. I mean, I know Copperbox is big and can do up to 8, but it's the things that sightlines are really good there. There's space to move around, and go to like merch and everything else like that. Even the beer line queues, they weren't that bad. They really weren't. Like these are things that and you're near lots and lots of local amenities as well. It's absolutely
hot dogs weren't great. Food wasn't as good as in Wembley, but whatever. No. Arena food, respect.
Was you on the pint in there, Benno?
Beast.
I had a few pints in there. Yeah, as I said earlier, met loads of our listeners, so that was
that was the best. Seeing loads of people there as well.
But it's a great venue for
to Neil as well. Actually, who when I came in, I'd been stressed about getting Charlie in and the buggy and stuff like that, and I'd already kicking on. And then I had someone asking me for a photo, and I was like, "Yeah, go on." And I felt like an arsehole afterwards, but luckily, saw him at the live show. I was like, "Mate, I'm sorry, it was just fucking nightmare that day."
Yeah, they weren't great with you about that, but I love it as a venue, as like. Because there's that middle section, isn't there, where you can kind of wander around and like there's a lot of like breathing space. So, if you want to like catch up with anyone or meet anyone type of thing. It was a great social venue as well as when you're in your seats, like a brilliant venue to watch the wrestling from. But we should talk the show itself. I think if we do a top down style, of two things I think most people are going to be talking coming out of this. There's obviously the Ospreay Shingo match and the Jericho angle that bled into All In. If you're Rev Pro, you don't say no to that. Obviously that is great, spectacle for them. And it definitely, hit the news everywhere, and there was video and photo of that everywhere. But also, I think the other match everyone came out of it talking about was Tomohiro Ishii versus Luke Jacobs. So I'd like to start there. It's a shame Garrett's on his holidays. We'll catch him when he gets back and get his thoughts on this, because he was frothing at the mouth at the possibility of this one, and I think he was loving it in person as much as he thought he would. As this just felt perfect. Like Luke Jacobs, if to give him this match 2 years ago, you might have been tempted to do it, but it would have been too early. Even now, he's just crossing over into that. Oh, now he's a man. Oh, now he's got a little bit bigger. Now he knows who he is a bit more. There's the unfortunate stuff with with Ethan Allen, which is a real shame. But as far as the team kind of going by the wayside with Ethan being injured again. But Jacobs as a standalone singles wrestler has really started to flourish this year and really started to slip into the role. And he did not look one bit out of pace in there with Tomohiro Ishii. It was the hard-hitting match that he had once with suplexes and strikes and all of the fun stuff thrown. Ishii gave Luke loads, and you couldn't help but walk out of this thinking Luke Jacobs in New Japan won, JP. I thought he was fantastic in this match. Only slight negative was I wish he'd taken a bit of a bow at the end. Like he kind of just sloped off. And that was maybe his moments. Like he should be the person everyone's talking about coming out of this show. And it would have been nice to kind of have that at the end of the match. But outside of that, like his work did the talking, because like I didn't speak to a person who would either, if you weren't talking about the Jericho thing, the first thing they said about this match, about this show, was Luke Jacobs.
Yeah. I was taken back to a time of when Tomohiro Ishii would be the regular kind of import into a big York Hall show. You put him in there and he'd have a fucking absolute belter of a match. The one disappointment being Walter. And Luke Jacobs had a much better match with Ishii than what Gunter did, I should say, rather than Walter. And it was like he was with him all of the way. Didn't look out of place at all. And I was like you. I was like, I want to. This should be the point where he has these kind of matches on the reg, which you always think of as like New Japan testing ground matches. So if Shingo's over again, you put him in there with Luke Jacobs, like, and he might be eating some pinfalls for it, but everyone can see the path that he's on, and he's so suited to be in Japan as well. And like I say, it's still very, very early doors that we're talking about here, but he looks more ready than most, and he has that kind of size and the kind of physique which works well for it, which isn't like overtly muscular. Obviously, he's a big lad, but it works because that kind of, and it was the perfect opponent for it. It was the perfect kind of styles clash for them to have. And yeah, I thought this was fucking tremendous. I mean, this might well be my favorite match of the weekend. I'd go 4.5 stars on it.
On a star rating point of view, it would be for me. I'd go 4.5, and I didn't go that high on anything on the AEW show, including Punk and Joe. Close.
Nope.
But yeah, I think this has a beat. I thought Luke was absolutely brilliant. Ishii was brilliant. It was what you wanted out of it. Like, any thoughts on it, Matt? I know it's not normally your style. There's something else in this show I think you're probably going to rave about that most other people wouldn't. But maybe was it the company you were sat in? Did that sweep you up in this? Give us the take from in the building, sat between fucking Grapple Garrett and Crewy. Them two must have been in love with this.
No, to be fair, I like went to the toilet when these come out, and I come back in. No, wait, no, honestly, I can't. Like, this is honestly worth it. Like, come in about like a couple of minutes, 5 minutes into the match, and I just cracked the joke. I always crack what for Misty, had a couple of chops, a couple of digs, and like just like, oh, not for me. But by the end of this match, boys, I was hanging off every chop, every move, every fucking kick out, the 1 count kick out that got the pop of the night, probably. Just even I was wrapped up in this match, and it wasn't even due to the company I was with. Honestly, it was amazing. But yeah, Gareth and Crewy and Gary were just all like, as you say, foaming at the mouth to this one. They were absolutely. Gareth was on such a high, saying, "I told everyone last week this is going to be the match of the weekend."
Yeah, he was right.
He was right. He was spot on, and he absolutely loved it. Yeah, and it was very good. It was very good.
Luke Jacobs in Japan when, JP? That's all it is. Like, they need. Yeah. I hope he does. You know, Oku. We always just don't really understand why he never gets put in those spots. You know, for whatever reason, New Japan have never picked him up, despite the Rev Pro relationship. I hope Luke Jacobs is the opposite end of that. I hope he gets the call, because he really deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely does. And whether it's New Japan, whether it's Noah, if you're Noah, you think,
yeah, it'd be good enough.
I think he could go into there. It's whether or not he'd be put in a prominent position, but I also just think for training reasons. If you put him in that dojo system and you have him training with some of these guys, he's going to get better. Like, just barring injury, like the trajectory is, and the ceiling for him is very, very, very high.
Let's do a bit of Matty Corner elsewhere on the show. We also had Subculture versus Velocities, which screams you, Matty.
You know what, though? Bit of a letdown, the tag match. It was. I was expecting more. It was good.
Did they get the crowd like I thought they would?
No,
I really didn't think they get the crowd better than they did. It felt like they were running through the motions doing the spots, but it wasn't really connecting in the way I thought. It was a disappointment for me. And to be fair, this came 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it was right before the Ishii Luke match. Yeah, I can understand not doing an interval in a bigger venue, but maybe
everyone around me was expecting one, and honestly, after every match, they were waiting for one after like the 4th.
I more thought it was the main event of the first half. I thought that's what these lads would get.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all right, wasn't it?
The shooting star DDT was amazing. Like, there were some good spots in it that one of the Velocities hit, but overall, I was slightly let down. I was expecting a little bit more, because they flew out and done the Impact pay-per-view, didn't they? Or the big show the next night. So maybe they were saving. I don't know. Don't want to speculate there, like, but was underwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on it, JP?
It's not that it was bad. It was just, it kind of seemed to go at like one pace. Like, it wasn't like, I didn't think it was like,
it didn't burst into life, did it?
No, it didn't really burst into life. Yeah. And then it kind of just ended. And that's, I mean, and that's not a slight on the guys in the ring.
No, still big fan of Subculture, like, boss.
I just think, I couldn't help but feel, I thought after Zack Sabre Jr., Ricky Knight Jr., which had gone on before, I thought, oh, well, there's the break. And then I run to the toilet in the bar, and it's like, they're doing another match. fuck? And it was just like, okay, come back. And there was that part of me just thought, I actually kind of physically need a bit of a break here. Apart from the fact it had been a stressful journey and all the rest of it, it was just like, actually, we kind of need that in there. So yeah, that's slightly, I mean, I'd probably go 3.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll do the top end and the Matty corner of the card. Oku Trent. You know,
Amazing.
we talked a lot this weekend about matches that like are for the live card and aren't. It's like actually, you know, the stuff earlier on the card, like Zack Sabre and Ricky Knight Jr., I don't have a lot to really say about. Like I don't know, I'm not saying they were bad, but it's hard to be grabbed by a match like that live, I think, sometimes. Sometimes a live, it's like what we talked about Wembley. There are certain matches that are built for a stadium show. I actually really liked Oku and Trent 7. Overbooked mess that it was. Like, and it maybe went a bit too far, but this was an ECW main event for me. Like, right down to, you know, Amira going through the table.
The Lordy Fullington spot.
Yeah.
It was.
You could argue they overdid it, and I could see people absolutely hating this because anytime Rev Pro have done something like this, people have hated it. But I actually think this worked for the environment. It really did. But I think your thoughts are the one I most want, Matty. Oku Trent 7. It felt right up your street.
Oh, mate, I was loving every fucking second of this one. Like, you know, I get ripped for it. Like, but I've always liked Trent 7 for some strange reason. I've always thought he was all right. And I just thought with him, you know, having the story where he robbed the title, was it? And I've seen the videos online. I thought it's obviously a big main event match in the show. They're not going to disappoint. And the table spots, I mean, first time I've seen a mirror, is it? Oku's valet. Yeah, because Gareth was telling me about the Ospreay match with Oku and where she's a part of that.
She was the third person in that match.
I need to go back and watch that because she was unbelievable. She looked amazing. She's done all of her spots amazing. That pile driver, I mean, I knew it was coming. I told the lads way before that is what's going to happen in that, before he even set it up. I knew that was coming. Was amazing. But there was the fisherman buster to the outside where the table didn't break. That was scary. That was fucking scary as well. And I even love the fact of playing into the story where Oku's got the half crab on there, Trent for the end, and he's still reaching for the title to try, you know, he's still trying to cling on for that title, give him a full circle on the story. It's a clap for me because I fucking dug every minute of this match. I loved it. Loved it.
I'm kind of with what Ewan said there, that a lot of this felt like a Jeff Jarrett match to me. So much stuff was like incredibly overblown. I know. It kind of
Jeff Jarrett match with table bumps. Great.
Jeff's not going through those tables, is he?
No.
And then Spike Trevay coming out at the end.
I hated that. Like, I mean, we should probably know better with it being Rev Pro, but I honestly thought that was Marty coming out. Like, I think a lot of people thought that with the "Do you remember me" thing and the birds wings and all of that in the video. And then it's like, that's only Spike Trevay. I don't think that really excites me as Oku's next program. Feels very progress.
Well, if we're tying into the fact of Progress and Enfield as heel aspects in Rev Pro, I'm kind of all for it. So that's probably where I lie. I'm just not convinced by Spike Trevay in the ring. That's the thing, and this is going to be like your top line kind of like feud. So yeah, it just all felt like a bit of a mess. And I thought actually the better way to go would be to get Trent 7 to take the belt and kind of have him hold the company hostage, and then have Oku as the like baby face defending Rev Pro, but. It's not the route they've gone down.
Me and Gareth, though, boys were saying put the belt on Trent 7's bodyguard. He looks amazing.
Leave him,
yeah. That's what
you
Gareth
would. He'd be your belt champ.
No, Gareth was loving him as well.
Yeah, when we saw him at the 229, like that close up, we're like, fucking hell, who's this, lads? I think none of us really remembered he was in NXT UK, but
yeah.
And yeah, from the other match from the top end of the card, obviously, Ospreay Shingo. Jericho moment was well done, wasn't it? I think we kind of had an inkling it was coming, but they left it late. They really did. They had a banging match, Shingo and Ospreay. Maybe I didn't feel like it was on the high. I haven't had a chance to rewatch it. I didn't feel it was on the high end of Shingo Ospreay matches, but it was very, very good. And it's, you know, two of the best wrestlers in the world. Obviously, Ospreay after the match set up a Zach match, which did hook Joe, of all things, to go to the next Copperbox show. So there you go. Sold one ticket there with Ospreay, Zach, and all that history happening at a Copperbox show. But yeah, good match. And then yeah, they did like I say, it was a long stretch after the match with Ospreay cutting a promo and doing all of that stuff and setting up the Zack match with Zack coming out. Ultimately for Jericho to maybe recreate All In 2018 a little bit and do the run in and eat up the match. I'm sure you were loving that, Matt.
Oh, he got some nuclear heat, didn't he, Jericho? Like he was fucking like hated, but yeah, Ospreay again as well. Beloved, really, JP. Like, obviously the first time I've been to that arena, but just seeing how much the fans were like, he was like a proper hero, wasn't he?
He was massively over.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought this was a really good sprint, and it kind of was what it was, like a 20-minute sprint basically. And Shingo, he isn't what he was. Like clearly, the injuries and time and stuff is wearing him down.
The first time I've noticed that, I was like, he's still great. He's still got the mind, but maybe, he might slow down soon. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I think I'd go like, I don't know what I'd go on it, maybe 4.
I'd go 4.
Yeah, 4 stars in the sleep in it though. Then, so as you say,
that's the thing, isn't it? The standard is so high that, like, you almost expect 5, but it was very good. It was perfect main event. It was the one they absolutely should have gone with. So, that was good. And like I say, Jericho thing was very memorable and very well done and got a lot of heat, didn't it? On the night as he kind of got chased out of the arena, and it'll put. So that was good. I suppose the only other thing from the top end of the show was I don't even need to spend much time on this. Alex wins higher than Mickey James.
Ruined by fans.
The fans behind us are.
I didn't when that happened in Germany. I wasn't mad about it. I thought it was kind of cool when it was the Bobby Guns versus it was against, I've forgotten now. Who was the dueling chants with? Somebody remind me in the chat. Where it was just endless dueling chants for the entire match.
Ilya Dragunov.
Maybe it was Ilya, yeah. I don't know. I feel like we've had several attempts of fans trying to recreate that with endless chants through the match. And yeah, Hardcore Country is a memorable song and cool, but like it just killed the match, didn't it? And people wouldn't stop despite being told to stop. I don't think the match had a very high ceiling as it was, but it definitely didn't eclipse it, JP.
No, it didn't at all. And like, I don't know, it just got lost. It just got swamped up by that chant, and I think that was one of the bigger problems on there as well. And I think it was just a bit of a shame, really, because like I said, they'd done some work, they'd done some build into it, but it just didn't meet exactly what I didn't have necessarily high expectations. I just hated the fact that the fans just kind of hijacked it, frankly.
Undercard, what stood out for you guys? I'll let you lead it. JP.
Zack Sabre Jr. and Ricky Knight Jr. Ricky Knight Jr. was a good match. Battle of the Juniors. I thought that was like a good match. I think rather than anything else, it wasn't set up to be something spectacular, but I thought that was pretty solid. I enjoyed ELP Shibata and versus the Bullet Club match just for the kind of simple spectacle.
It was so cool to see Shibata. Like it was so cool. Like it was just
he got a monster pop, didn't he?
Pop. It's because you didn't think you'd ever see it again. It really felt like it was just something out of a bizarro universe. Seeing Shibata come out on a Rev Pro show again, like, and that's someone who's got genuine star quality. Like, he can still keep up in the ring. It's a different version of Shibata than we've seen before. But that made, to be honest, I think for a lot of people, I spoke to a lot of people after that said the same thing. Almost worth the price of admission. Getting to see Shibata in a big time setting as well, like this, and to see him get that reaction. Oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah. I like, what I liked as well, though, boys. Leon Slater and Dan Maloney. Thought that
that was really good.
Yeah, opener. It was fast
Leon got way more offense than that. So Leon Slater, like, it felt like he took 70-80% of the match. Like, it really did. Like, it to the point where it was like, oh, they're giving him loads because Dan Maloney's going to win at the end of it because obviously he's, the New Japan guy who's got a belt. Leon Slater went over. Like after all of that, he went over. Well, you're right, from the start and doing the dive over the corner.
Amazing.
Like from the entrances was brilliant. It was just a great flyer versus base match, like a solid. You probably might not go over 3.5 on it as like it wasn't. It was the opener of the main show, but the perfect pace for an opener and the perfect slot. Make Leon Slater your first guy out on your main show, and make it memorable. And he was another name people are going to be coming out of the show talking about.
Definitely.
Yeah. I didn't see that one, but I think the Leon Slater story is going to be a really interesting one. I think it's time. Like in terms of he just needs this year to establish himself in Rev Pro, maybe a feud with Connor Mills, the Cruiserweight Championship. We could put that on him there as well. I think that would be the way. But he's still very raw, like. But there's definitely something there.
I thought Connor Mills himself looked good with Callum Newman as well in the 6-way. That's what it was. I think that was a good one at that point in the card to kind of get the crowd going. I think it was lively enough and kind of worked as a way to kind of get people off the feet. JJ Gale for Vegeta, there's not much to say there. And yeah, like I said,
there at all.
No, it was a nice little match to kind of get them on the card, but yeah. And yeah, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Ricky Knight Jr. I want to watch that back again on tape. I kind of agree with the criticism a few people said about Ricky Knight Jr. Maybe, I don't know, he got a lot of his shit in, but did it make for a better match? It felt more like a Ricky match than a Zack match.
Gareth for saying that.
Didn't feel like it lived up to its billing.
Gareth's a big Zack guy, and he was basically saying Zack was getting squashed. That's what he kept saying. He said he got in it was definitely a Ricky Knight match. Yeah, he was saying.
Definitely. What else have we covered there? That's kind of it, really, isn't it? We didn't mention the obviously there's the pre-show battle royal as well with the women's stuff. Yeah, Sky Blue coming out. There you go. Bit of a. Fortunately, the knobheads down the road were at what they have QT Marshall, and they were announcing Eddie Kingston to the 300 odd people that they drew on the UK's WrestleMania weekend. But Tony Khan threw Rev Pro bone, and they got Sky Blue. She didn't do much, and I can't imagine she'll be back. But it was a nice pop, and people went for it, didn't they, before the show started, Matt?
Oh, it was a big pop, very big pop, because that's when we were like literally walking in the concourse, getting a drink and going through, and that's when Sky Blue's music hit. And I obviously don't know the music, but it got a big pop. So I thought, who's this? Ran out and I seen it was there. So yeah, fair play.
But yeah, all in all, I thought a really strong show for Rev Pro. I think they delivered on the night. Thought the
very
was
good.
Joe Quilden coming out and doing his little speech at the top. That was a nice touch. I believe for the people who watched the stream, like they did a good job of getting the stream up on rpondemand.com, RevProOnDemand.com. I didn't see one negative really feedback on that you normally get on those types of live streams as well. Felt like with the bright light shined on them, JP. Felt like they delivered. This was every bit of Rev Pro card, and I think it showcased the good of what Rev Pro have.
I think they did, and I think it's like we've said many times, it's a reward for a lot of the hard work they put in over the pandemic. The thing I wish they had was the faith of a TV channel or some sort of sports streaming service out behind them, just to give it that kind of polish. Because I think there would be enough there if somebody was willing to kind of invest in them as a television product as well. Because I think that would really help. But it's a reward of the scouting system, and they make the best of what they have. Like it's not ever going to be like a perfect show, and they're working with a load of really young talent. But at the same time, they've made that slow, steady progress, and it's a reward. It's a reward for investing in like lots and lots of young wrestlers, and it's a reward in them telling, like, developing characters that people are gonna find appealing. So I think they're gonna do it next year, and if obviously you got All In there as well, it depends on the kind of day of the week, depending if there's going to be up against a load of TV tapings and stuff like that. That might be the thing that could hurt it in terms of competition. But other than that, it felt really good. And it felt like a proper celebration. And 4,000 for British wrestling in 2023 is not something to be sniffed at, because they haven't got like the remnants of a boom behind them to kind of go through. This is like they're doing that kind of
4,000 in 2023. It felt big time, like just standing there and taking in that scale of crowd there for a Rev Pro show. And yeah, like I say, we saw the best of Rev Pro. It was like I say, people are going to walk out this weekend talking about Luke Jacobs, which is mission accomplished as far as the show goes. And it just gave you some faith, as Quilden said at the top, that like it is just the beginning. They could absolutely come back next year when we have the other big AEW weekend there, and they could absolutely run the Copperbox, potentially Wembley Arena, or maybe somewhere a bit closer to Wembley even next time. And I'd have every confidence they could do this again. They got the New Japan show, in 6 weeks, and I'm sure they'll fill up for that as well. Just good professional Brit Res done well, and this is what it can pay off for. You know what I mean? That, like I say, there's a world of difference between this and the 300 odd that were a progress down the road. Shouldn't be sniffed at. 4,000 people, and and if someone like you, Matty, had a great time there as well, that says everything.
Yeah, it was thoroughly had an amazing time. I thought it was a great show, and Obviously, the 7 match in Oku, I honestly one of my favorite live experiences. Did I say about our live show again? Like, I love that. Loved every second of it.
Definitely. Well, the weekend did have some negatives as well that we got to touch on. I think there's probably going to have to be a day in future where we spend, more time on particularly Terry Funk. Obviously the passing of Terry Funk. I think at the time that he originally got sick, JP, do you remember when there was rumors that he might be about to pass? We kind of did a bit of a career retrospective there. So I imagine, you've got a lot to say about Terry Funk, and we should mention it in a minute. But it wasn't just that. Obviously, unbelievably on this big weekend with us all in town, I was sat in a pub with Davey and Braden and Shoreditch on what night would it have been? Thursday night. It's Thursday night when the news came in about Bray Wyatt. Just unbelievable, isn't it? 36, no age, with 4 kids as well. Your mind immediately assumes the worst when you hear, a wrestler death, and absolutely no cold comfort either to find out. I think the news came out today, didn't it? That it wasn't wearing his defibrillator. It was part of the issue with Bray Wyatt, and that he'd been dealing with a sickness that was COVID related earlier in the year, and we'd all heard it. But as Chris says here in the chat, Matt, it was such a gut punch on such a weekend where there's so much. We've just spent 3 hours, celebrating over the weekend. Like, this was a constant thing in the back of everyone's mind there. I'm glad, AEW did at least the little tributes that they did. Obviously SmackDown was dedicated to it on Friday as well. But that is my bad memories, just being sat there in the pub with Davey Braden, and Stefan just being like, how do you even react to this?
Right.
It was just, we were all kind of stood there for like 15 minutes just trying to comprehend the idea that it was true.
It was one that hit me quite hard, if I'm honest, on Thursday night, because I was just going to bed and just scrolling, just doing your nightly scrolling through Twitter before you put the phone down and actually go to sleep. And honestly, I just caught like Triple H's tweet, and it said, like, unfortunately, he's passed away. Like, what? So I had to open it up properly and look at it, and I was like, honestly, my stomach just sank. It was just fucking horrendous news. Just, as you say, 36 is no age, a year younger than myself. And it just makes you think of everything, doesn't it? When, like, and the 4 kids as well, just tragic story. And, people can say what they want about him, like, didn't enjoy his work and stuff like that. But, it was just, it's a current, like, wrestler, and just in going through being off ill and stuff like that. It's just horrible.
I wasn't sure to think when those stories first came coming through, JP. I was like, I just assumed, I don't know, I thought it was like a mental health thing or something like that, and the booking was very, very start with it. But obviously, we've had more detail come out on it, and just obviously it is a health issue, physical health issue.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's the thing about it. We are used to wrestler deaths, aren't we? And we tend not to be used to them because of natural causes. To be honest, it's the kind of bleakness of the wrestling industry. But this is, like I say, absolutely horrible. And regardless of whatever we think of Bray Wyatt, character,
we shouldn't lie either as well. Like, we had criticism of him. Like, we also have positives to say about him. Like, when he came back this run, I'm on record saying, like, him and Braun Strowman were the two where when Vince was losing his fucking marbles and cut 2 of the biggest merch sellers in his company, you were clearly over with that audience. Like, despite not liking the creative side of it, which I think you're about to say, JP, and not not necessarily, the Fiend is not something I think on this podcast we were a fan of. The elements of it we were interested in when we went back and looked at the the Wyatt Shield stuff. Everyone always says that's the original Bray Wyatt Cape Fear character. We were all into, and we raved about that on the mixtape and stuff. But we would, and you should, give credit where it's due in that, like, when he came back, like, that massive pop he got must have been massive reward for him to realize, as he said in his promo, that people, did remember him, and there was a hardcore base in WWE who loved him. Numbers were up when he came back, initially. They fortunately didn't hit the landing on it, whether it was, his health issues or creative issues or whatever it was. But in a time where there weren't difference makers in WWE, JP, he was one. And, we can recognize that we don't have to sit here and lie and pretend we loved every bit of the creative. We didn't. But we did respect the fact that he was, he was clearly over to that element of an audience, that he was clearly creative in ways that maybe, didn't always appeal to us, but, like, was somebody who, got himself to that position and had earned that spot, on WWE cards.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I would completely agree with a lot of that, and spoke about like you say when we mentioned we did like the Shield mixtape and the stuff with the wires, but it's 36 for
Yeah, it's horrible,
no age whatsoever, and it's horrific, and yeah, your heart completely goes out to his family, and in particular his wife and his kids. His fiance, I should say, like horrible story.
It was kind of I saw a lot like people were literally on when I was leaving Wembley, people were singing the whole world and stuff like that, and it was like wow. Obviously, it affected a lot of people a lot of ways, but we'll know more as more comes out in the story. It won't be the last time we speak about it, but yeah, genuinely a really sad one, and heart goes out to his family. And yeah, just quickly, JP, obviously in Terry Funk there'll be a time when we'll have to do some kind of deep cut mixtape, something on even the parts of Terry Funk's career. We're all familiar with the the ECW run. We did a Terry Funk and ECW mix. I'd even forgotten we did that, a deep cut with Carl. We have covered kind of that period of his career. We're all familiar with the later run and Chainsaw Charlie into like maybe the not so good ECW run in the 2000s. And even, you go to the 80s, NWA, Flair and Funk stuff is absolutely something we should revisit.
Yeah.
But there's parts of his career even before that, JP, that, a career before a career, I think I saw Alan Farrell say that you could, do an entire deep cut on a mixtape and spend, an hour talking about, 3 hours talking about, 12 hours talking about.
That was my thought, is immediately I thought I'd love to do like a deep cut or a mixtape of some of his career, including some of his early stuff in Japan and that retirement speech he gives, the forever speech as well. I mean, the word icon and things are bandied around, but he felt like he was someone because he had that added danger to him, and he moved in a way that no one else did when he was kind of in the ring. And he could go from heel to face in a heartbeat, and it was fine. And it was
entertaining as both, obviously.
Yeah, and it'd be entertaining as both, isn't it? I mean, there's stuff like when he came back and he was turning heel on Tommy Dreamer and stuff like that in ECW, which again seems rather silly, but he could always carry it off. Like he is like genuinely one of the all-time greats. It just feels to me there's probably for me as a fan, I'd like to see more of his stuff and kind of into the 70s and stuff like that. Like that I'd be fascinated to kind of see that and like leading up to that first retirement, like the kind of first of many. And I always think because of Beyond the Mat as well, can't underestimate like the amount of sympathy that opened eyes up for people who didn't know anything about Terry Funk. And it kind of felt like, no, actually, this is a guy who is, massively important within wrestling, who was beloved by fans of all the major promotions. There wasn't anywhere he went where people didn't like him. And in terms of respect and other things like that. And this is even, a guy who reinvented himself so many times as well. We speak about the likes of Chris Jericho doing it. Funk did it and managed to get himself like over absolutely everywhere. Like he is a legend. And like, I think the thing with him is like, there is this career and there's this big body of work behind him that feels like that is something that a lot of fans need to go back and explore. And probably a lot of wrestlers need to learn from as well.
Definitely. Big Funk guy, Matt. Someone like in your tape trading days. Have you got the comps? Like what should?
Yeah, it's the Memphis. My mind goes straight to that MT Arena with Jerry Lawler. My eye and stuff. That's where I go with Terry Funk straight away. And I need to do more of his old stuff. Obviously familiar, like you say, the recent stuff. But he's always a guy who's in the top 5 list. Every message board, every forum you see, he's always in that top 5. So he was very highly regarded, and he's one of the fans' favourites for sure.
Definitely, yeah. I said that in the chat. Funky Flair 89's iconic. Everyone remembers the power driver spot on the table and all that.
Yeah, unbelievable,
incredible. We haven't actually done a Roundhouse review before now. At some point,
over the top as well with Stallone, the arm wrestling one. He's in that as well.
Yeah, but another candidate. There's so much we could mine there, isn't there? We'll absolutely try and do justice at some point. But yeah, really was a bit of a down note on the entire weekend. But it was good to see the Bray tributes on the pay-per-view, and also like say the Terry Funk spots. I think a lot of the we didn't really talk about it, Stadium Stampedes, but Moxley was going out of his way to pay homage, and
King as well.
But obviously, so that was good to see, and I'm sure there'll be more where that come from. But yeah, we've had a monster show, lads. A lot to cover, and yeah, more to come. We're gonna say as if next week's gonna be a quiet week. Fucking All Out and the WWE pay-per-view next weekend, JP. I don't know if you realise that. Paybacks on Saturday, All Out on Sunday. So we couldn't even punt any of this to next week. Hence the bumper runtime. As I look at 3 hours 22 minutes on the clock for the main show, it's as we all feel like 3 hours 22 minutes after a long week. But yeah, not getting shorter next week, JP. But hey, the biggest show in British and world wrestling history. It deserved the time.
It did. Yeah. This is like a throwback to the much longer episodes that we were saying to ourselves we were going to be.
Seeing Joe at the weekend, mate. That's all it was.
Yeah,
he had an influence over us.
But it was
in unseen ways.
It was an amazing weekend. It's a weekend I'm not forgetting anytime soon. And just a shout out again for all of the people who came along to the live show, everyone who came up and spoke to us as well. It means so much. So thank you so much.
Definitely. Much appreciated, folks. Thank you, everybody I interacted with, anyone who came along to the show, even the people that didn't make it. It was great to hear everyone having a great weekend. You don't get many of those, and it was brilliant to follow on the Discord. Everyone, putting photos in of the seats and stuff like that. That palpable, excitement throughout it. And luckily, CM Punk's given us some palpable excitement to enjoy as well. Post it with him and Jack Peri-Peri. So nice for us to have all that. But yeah, on that note, I think with the big weekend behind us, like I say, we will be back next week. We'll be dragging Matty back as it is at a WWE review weekend, All Out as well. We got Dealer's Choice Month coming up in September as well for patrons to look forward to. But yeah, on that note, it's been a long night. Sure, we all need to get to bed. So thank you, patrons, for tuning in. Thank you, audio listeners, for listening, and everyone on the YouTube replay. But yeah, we're off. Thanks again. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Ta-da.
Good night.